was written, cut under the lid, a state of capital report written in a rush, released totally clumsily, in my view. And that what raises the questions, because there is a report on that statement of the Absa Bank. Would like to see it.
When I left, we had concluded a provisional report. It was really just an administrative error that prevented me from signing that report. Another question I'm not going to answer is the alleged current report the same as my history? Will just tell the truth about what I concluded and what is now on the table.
We live in the time of leaked reports here in South Africa. Yes, a very good morning to the Newsroom team. Kendall Mahamat is on the sports desk, Elvis President, myself. Elvis, it's a very interesting one, this apartheid-era state, looting, collusion, big business and the like. What do you make of this investigation?
It is bailouts that is extraordinary, they say. Just before a democratic South Africa could emerge, this looting took place. Well, they say looting, they say bailout. We'll interrogate that today.
In that leaked report, apparently, we have it on good authority that, well, the question is for the president to, well, establish a commission of inquiry into apartheid-era collusion between the state and big business. We're also conducting a poll, of course. ABSA's been the one that's in the crosshairs, it seems. This report by former public protector Thuli Madonsela, which founded Absa Bank, irregularly benefited by billions, yes, not millions, billions of rands in loans made by the Reserve Bank to the then Bank Corp. So we're asking you, should Absa pay back the apartheid bailout money? What do we have in? 102 people voting in. 82% Elvis are saying, yes, please.
Yes, please. They must pay back the money. There's a hashtag as well, Absa pay back the money.
Pay back the money.
18% says no. Now, I guess that must be the people from Absa saying no. 102 votes in 23 hours left. You can still get in touch with us and let us know what's on your mind. But people are already commenting.
People are already commenting. Let's have a look what you guys want to talk about. Let's see it. Maybe you can add to the discourse here this morning. Jabu Sankara says they must pay back the money. It's as simple as that. The Maverick Jabu Sankara, that's our first one. Of course, Elvis, we live in the time of shocking inequality in the world. Our question talks to that after, well, Oxfam, South Africa, well, they revealed that 8 men own the same wealth as the poorest half of the world here in South Africa, and 3 men in South Africa
owns much more than what 50% of the bottom half of our poorest own in this country. So we're asking you the question. Why do you think does this gap between the rich and the poor continue to widen?
Every year we're in Davos every year, and every year there's promises to close this gap and close this gap, but it's not happening. Why do you think it's not happening? I have my ideas, but this is not an opinion show for everyone else. Let's get your views and you tell us, why do you think the gap between the rich and the poor is widening, despite this talk shop in Switzerland every single year that we must close this gap?
We'll get some reaction from Oxfam and the WEF on the situation, and tomorrow we'll run a complete theme on this as well. So you have to stay tuned here on the Newsroom. This is where you hear it first. But now, let's take a look at your news headlines. Parliament's ad hoc committee probing the SABC's affairs recommends that the appointment of the new GCEO, the COO and the company secretary at the public broadcaster should be finalised as soon as possible. The public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, has laid criminal charges over the leaking of a preliminary report on the apartheid-era bailout to Bancorp or Absa. And over 50 people have been killed when a Nigerian Air Force jet reportedly attacked a refugee camp accidentally in the northeast of the country. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Mahamat what's happening on the sports front. Good morning.
Gentlemen, good morning to you. Sounds like you've got your hands full with all sorts of leaked reports and whatnot.
We just don't have leak taps here in this country. We also have leak reports.
It's an old Chinese axiom. It's a curse, actually. May you live in interesting times. We are right there in South Africa. Like right now, we're living in very interesting times. But
thank you very much for saying that, Evan, because you know what? Good morning to you. That's exactly what we're living in right now. Interesting times. And this is what's coming up in the sports.
I've made myself unavailable for the New Zealand Test Series. I will be there for the ODIs for the rest of the year. And definitely not retiring out of Test cricket, that's for sure, because I still have a plan of coming back at some stage.
AB de Villiers creates a conundrum for Cricket South Africa as he tells the world that he's making himself unavailable for selection for the upcoming Test Series in New Zealand.
He's up against the best goalkeeper in Africa. He beats him.
The Black Stars of Ghana get the AFCON campaign off to a winning start, edging Uganda's Cranes by a single penalty goal.
Well, she survives.
And world number one, Angelique Kerber, survives the tough test as she powers her way into the third round of the Australian Open. We'll also be bringing you news of Roger Federer's 3-set win against his American opponent. But for now, it is back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. Parliament's ad hoc committee probing the SABC's affairs says that the appointment of a new GCEO, COO, as well as the company's secretary at the public broadcaster should be finalized as soon as possible. Now, this is one of the recommendations in the committee's working document, which has been leaked to social media. The committee is due to meet over the next 2 days to finalize the report. According to the document, the appointment of permanent staff to all senior management positions, including the Chief Executive Officer, should be finalized urgently. It further recommends that political interference at the SABC must be condemned, attended to, and exposed immediately to the SABC's accounting authority and to Parliament. The document also says the Communications Committee should play a greater oversight role over the SABC to ensure the separation of powers between the SABC and the Minister. It further says the Communications Committee's oversight role should ensure that the shareholder is not involved in the day-to-day operations of the SABC. Now, the Public Protector, Busisiwe Mqabane, has laid criminal charges over the leaking of a preliminary document or a report on an apartheid-era bank bailout. The report recommends that ABSA pay back 2.25 billion rand. The investigation, conducted in 1997 by a UK-based asset recovery agency, CIEX, apparently suggested to the Reserve Bank that it should recover money given to the Reserve Bank to Bancorp, which had been taken over by ABSA. A subsequent investigation by the Davos panel of experts found that ABSA's shareholders did not derive any undue benefit from the Reserve Bank's intervention, and as such, no claim of restitution could be pursued against ABSA. Meanwhile, the African National Congress Secretary General Gwede Mantashe has questioned the former Public Protector Thuli Madantsela's handling of the ABSA report. He says he does not understand why it was not treated with the same urgency as the State of Capture report.
Cut under the lead, State of Capture report written in a rush, released totally clumsily, in my view. And that what raises the questions, because there is a report on that stated of the ABSA Bank. Would like to see it.
Now, the former Public Protector Thuli Madantsela says the leaked provisional report into state looting in the dying days of apartheid was concluded before she left office. The leaked preliminary report recommends that ABSA pay back over 2 billion rand stemming from an alleged bailout by the apartheid government. She says it was maladministration error that prevented her from signing the report.
Advocate Paul Hoffman and I are members of the World Justice Forum, which focuses on the rule of law and tries to involve civil society in the rule of law beyond lawyers and parliamentarians. And during that past ride, he then asked me to investigate, and he said it was low-lying fruit. Already the money ABSA is ready to pay, Of the 26 billion, the money was not just the ABSA lifeboat, it was several lifeboats that amounted to about 26 billion. And other monies that they allegedly stolen, not necessarily as lifeboats. You can read a book by Julian Asken, Dangerous Deceits, where he talks about this matter. And then, to cut the long story short, then he convinced us that we could do it. But also he said at the time that we have to only look at government's action at the time of receiving the reports then, which is we're not investigating what happened to the lifeboat. Was the money stolen? Was the money borrowed? We're just only investigating that when a report was given to this government after the Apartheid-era came into existence, this is post-1998, was it processed properly, or was there maladministration in processing that report? And if there was maladministration, was harm occasioned to them? So we then, on the basis of that, I investigated, did a preliminary first, interviewed the Minister of Finance, and interviewed Reserve Bank, and then eventually I've interviewed virtually everyone: Chris Stolz, former Reserve Bank Governor, President Thabo Mbeki, Frank Chikane, and former Minister of Finance, Trevor Michael, current Minister of Finance, and Mr. Belema Setla, and ultimately Michael Woodley in London was also interviewed. Regarding, do I regard it as a lifeboat or as a gift? Already, Judge Davis answered that question about this transaction having been a wrong transaction. So that was not really an issue. For us, was the money payable, and was the money paid? And we didn't have to go into whether it was a wrong deal or right deal. We went into the agreement itself, whether the agreement said the money was payable. And if the agreement said the money was payable, was it paid? And what findings did we arrive at? I can't say at this stage. Secondly, we had to answer the question of legally, is the money now recoverable? We firstly had to look at the behavior of government on receiving the Davis report and receiving the Hill report to say, was there wrongdoing in how those reports would and based on that, we arrived at the conclusion that I arrived at. When I left, we had concluded a provisional report. It was really just an administrative error that prevented me from signing that report. Another question I'm not going to answer is the alleged current report the same as my history report? Just tell the truth about what I concluded and what is now on the table.
Well, let's go over to Eben to find out what's happening on our poll that we're asking you on that.
Yeah, let's just apologize to you for the poor audio quality on that clip, but it's such an important matter. We thought we'd run it and try and fix the sound as best as possible. Of course, we live in the time of leaked reports. It seems every report is leaked. Even there are rumours around that the SABC's preliminary report has been leaked this morning and that it's available. We looked for it, we couldn't find it. But of course, we're right on the apartheid bailout money report. Let's have a look at the poll that we've been running. We've been asking you guys to vote. Tell us, should ABSA pay back the apartheid bailout money? Hashtag ABSA pay back the money, mind you. 113 votes are in now, and the numbers are still the same. So it's fairly constant, Elvis. It looks as if people are right on top of us, and they're saying apartheid bailouts, no good. It's no good. 82% of them say pay back the money, ABSA. Pay back the money. Of course, it's going to cause a whole lot of talking points, I think, over the weeks to come. And it puts the Public Protector's Office right in the middle of it, what has gone before and what is happening now. But we'll talk about that at length in our theme talk for today, because we're dealing with this, bailout is what they call it, after some of the other news with Elvis next.
Now, talking about that, Eben, one expert believes that the Barclays ABSA apartheid funding saga reeks of political factionalism. Yanni Rousseau, The head of economics at WITS and the former head of the supervisor of banks at the South African Reserve Bank says things are not as they seem. In financial distress, Trust Bank, owned by then Bancorp, were bailed out by the taxpayer on the eve of the fall of apartheid. And the money was whisked out of the country.
Raso worked at the Reserve Bank around the time that the assistance was issued, and he was secretary of a panel of experts led by Judge Davos to investigate the Reserve Bank's role with regard to the financial assistance to Bancorp. Raso says there were other cases of the Reserve Bank assisting banks, but it is only the Bancorp case attracting attention.
We have a report of the public protector on the state of capture. And there are certain factions in the ANC that's trying to make a case that state of capture had started much earlier. And these factions are trying to use the assistance to Bancorp as evidence that ABSA managed to capture the state many, many years ago.
While former Reserve Bank Governor Chris Stolz has put the responsibility for paying the Bancorp money squarely at ABSA's store and says it should pay, Raso disagrees.
Bancorp on condition that the assistance continued, so ABSA paid full value for the assistance. So from that perspective, I cannot see how it can be made out that ABSA benefited from the assistance. But again, if there is pressure on ABSA around the assistance to Bancorp, in all fairness, all assistance to all banks should be investigated, including assistance to African Bank and the likes, to Nedbank, to Islamic Bank and others.
Speaking at the Cape Town Press Club, former public protector Thuli Madonsela says she was asked by advocate Paul Hoffman to investigate apartheid looting.
When I left, we had concluded a provisional report. It was really just an administrative error that prevented me from signing that report.
Former President Thabo Mbeki says he has not been furnished with a copy of the report and is therefore not able to comment at the moment. Gloria Safakomosi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now there you have it. That's your news for now. As you know, this is our theme for today. We'll take that particular story and break it apart and maybe look into the happenings of what happened during that period, the takeover of ABSA from Bancorp. But it's over now to Eben to take a look at all the social media trends. As you know, Eben, it's all happening on social media. Well, a number of things, of course, on the cards.
People
in
have
fact,
a lot
we'll do some comments first.
Let's take a look at the comments. But yeah, it's interesting. You know, all of these discussions went to the TRC. What happened at the TRC, of course, well, nobody's prepared to talk about that right now, one would think. But interesting nonetheless. Yeah, your views. Kolani Madela says, Newsroom, corruption remains corruption under apartheid government or democratic government. Pay back the money, says Kolani. Thank you, he said. Thank you. Now, the extrovert is back. Kemogetsi Jal, he says, Newsroom, yes, with the current repo rate. Now, the original number was 1.25 billion.
Yes.
But with interest, it now stands at 2.25 billion.
And this overtake all the corruption scandals we had since 1994. Can you believe that?
Can you believe it? And that's only one investigation, Alva. So we should always look at things in context, yes? Whether you... Newsroom, yes, they must pay back the money. The money can be utilized for needy students and infrastructure. Interesting take there, Tsimani. Lechasa comes in, Alvis. He says, hashtag ABSA pay back the money. Yes, they should pay back our forefathers' money back. Finish and klar, he says. Finish and klar. Those of you that are not in South Africa, that means no more discussion. If we were in Egypt, they would say, khalas, 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 it's done.
There you go.
That's what it is, Alvis. But we'll speak to a couple of stakeholders after the break. But before we get there, let's do a little bit of housekeeping now. There's a lot happening, of course, on social media, and a lot of you are tweeting us and so forth. The big hashtag, of course, of the last 24 hours there, we have burning issue, as Alvis called it, hot topic. Ford Cougar. The cars have been recalled. However, the jokes are well out. Here are some of the memes. This image is captioned, nobody wants to park next to it. This is what Ford South Africa has now managed to do. Oh, my word. Then, this image has been photoshopped, we have to say, but it's got a fire extinguisher on the back. And, well, that kind of puts it in context. And then we have a cartoon here that shows Fire trucks following a Ford Cougar with a speech bubble from the driver saying, "I think they want us to pull over." And of course, Nando's, well, they always going to jump on a bandwagon, aren't they? Their latest ad, "If you thought Cougar was on fire, then you haven't tried our flame-grilled peri-peri chicken." And finally, Lebza says, "Can you imagine the first black person whose Ford Cougar went up in flames? He probably thought, Gebeloi, witchcraft." Yeah, that's where we are living here in South Africa. Of course, the AFCON is well on right now. Let's just update you on the hashtag AFCON 2017. Of course, everyone's favorite team in Africa, or everyone's second team in Africa, Ghana. They're all smiles after last night's match against Uganda. President Yoweri Museveni tweeted, "Hard luck, Uganda Cranes. You put up a spirited fight against Ghana. We look forward to better results in the remaining games," from the president there. Then there's been some tragic news, of course, a horrific story from Nigeria, hashtag Nigeria. More than 100 refugees and aid workers have been killed and around 200 injured when a Nigerian Air Force military jet mistakenly bombed a refugee camp. Now, Médecins Sans Frontières and the International Red Cross are outraged and deeply saddened, as they had staff at this particular camp. The Red Cross said, "We renew our call for aid workers to operate safely and be allowed to deliver assistance where it is needed most." Also, all eyes are on Gambia ahead of tomorrow. Yes, the elected, some call him the rightful new leader, Adama Barrow, is expected to be inaugurated following the hashtag Gambia has decided. However, former leader Yahya Jammeh is fighting to keep his position as president and has declared a state of emergency in the country there today. Thousands have fled to try and escape the possible violence that some say will now follow. Well, that's tomorrow, and it should be interesting. And on the show, we will keep an eye on it very closely, what happens in the Gambia. Now, our picture of the day, this one from Brent Hudson, and it's captioned, and it's a beautiful picture. Personally, I think it's one of the pretty pictures that we've had so far. An angel of mercy fighting fire in the Cape Winelands. Talking about sunset, sky, Oryx helicopter, firefighter, bushfire, beautiful picture, skyline. Pity that it is such a sad occurrence with more than 30 fires being fought in the Western Cape. Now, our comment of the day comes from Isima Ode, who says, "In Nigeria, a military jet mistakenly dropped a bomb on an IDP camp. More 100 people dead, many injured. How does something like this even occur?" Yes, it's a fair question, and it's a question that we will put to the relevant authorities in the next couple of days. Now, back here in South Africa, let's take a look at what's on our diary, what's in the courts. Just outside Cape Town, a pastor accused of running a multi-million rand Ponzi scheme is due to appear in the Bellville Magistrates Court. The 39-year-old pastor, Colin Davids, is currently out on a 100,000 rand bail. He faces charges of fraud and contravening the Financial Advisory and Intermediary Services Act, as well as a Banks Act. David's company, Platinum Forex, is not registered by the Financial Services Board. It's a story that had a lot of people up in arms because people say they lost money and the like. Keep you updated what happens with that story, because it will be in the news for the next couple of days. Now, of course, today we're dealing with the state not the State of Capture report, the Apartheid bailout report. Let's now go to somebody who's in the know. Advocate Paul Hoffman, he's on the line. He's from Accountability Now. He's a man that can help us. Good morning, Advocate Hoffman. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well, and I'm very pleased to hear that you think I'm in the know, because I feel a bit like a mushroom in relation to what's been going on since the leaking of the report of the Public Protector, I mean.
Give us your overview then. Give us your overview. What do you think, and how this investigation surrounding ABSA and Bancorp, how it surfaced?
Well, the state of play at the moment is that I have seen with my own two eyes, because a kind journalist passed it on to me, a complete provisional report signed by the Public Protector on the 20th of December last year, and a letter from the Public Protector to the President in which she refers to the provisional report 3 times and says that she'd like to know if he's got anything to say before she makes it final. No confidentiality, no nothing. Now, I've also been told on Monday last week by the Public Protector that there is no such provisional report. So it's a little bit confusing. The only explanation I've had from her so far was that it was the intention to ask the Reserve Bank and Absa Bank for their comments on the manner in which they were potentially detrimentally affected by what she was going to find. So she gives what is called a Section 7(9) notice to them. She told me nothing about her communication with the President, and I have asked her whether what's been given to me by the journalist is a forgery, and she's refused to answer. So now I'm taking her to the Parliamentary Committee to find out exactly how badly the whole thing has been handled. Because the reason why we initially, long ago, and successfully as long ago as 2011, reported this matter to the Public Protector is because it seems that the new South African government engaged a firm called CIEX to investigate apartheid-era malfeasance and to recover monies misappropriated in the dying days of the old order. We would like to see, because our name is accountability now, we would like to see some accountability around what happened to that contract, because we've seen a report that suggests that there's all sorts of malfeasance, not only with Absa Bank, but across the board virtually.
Yeah.
And we've also been led to understand that the contract was just summarily cancelled by the State Security Agency without any good reason to do so. And that's really why this complaint is sitting on the Public Protector's desk. Her provisional report is only provisional, and if the Reserve Bank and Absa can persuade her that the facts are wrong and that the conclusions of law that she seeks to draw are false, then it is quite possible that the final report will exonerate everybody. On the other hand, if that isn't done, then there will be an accounting in respect of why the CIEX report was cancelled.
Now, Advocate Hoffman,
the contract was cancelled.
Advocate Hoffman, what do you make of the timing of the report? ANC Secretary General...
Well, the timing makes it look very much, from what I've seen, and I don't know if it's a forgery because she won't tell me, but from what I've seen, it looks like the new Public Protector made a Christmas present of this report to the President. Remember, it went off on the 20th of December. And the reason why it's a Christmas present is because it gives Team Zupta the opportunity of getting back at Absa Bank for cancelling the Gupta brothers' banking accounts of their companies that used to be with Absa. And of course, there are other, even more way out speculations around it, which I'm not going to bore your listeners with.
Give us a quick idea.
Anybody can speculate.
Give us a quick idea, Advocate Hoffman. How deep do you think the rabbit hole is with regards to big business and the benefits that they reap from the apartheid system?
Well, the rabbit hole is the same size and the same shape as it is in the new South Africa. You know, Thuli Madonsela came to breakfast with the Press Club on Monday, and she said the idea of overthrowing white monopoly capital is not to replace it with a monopoly of two families in the new South Africa. And part of the problem is that we started a whole new project in 1994, and we committed ourselves to ensuring multi-party democracy under the rule of law, in which openness, accountability, and responsiveness to the needs of ordinary people are right at the front of the stove. I encourage your listeners to go and read Section 1 of the Constitution, because I've just summarized for you on the air. And the difficulty that we have is that there is secrecy, lack of accountability, and unresponsiveness at every level in government today. And that needs to be addressed. What happened in the previous century may be dead and buried, may be subject to some recoveries. That will depend on what the public protector finds out when she's got all of her ducks in a row. But for now, what we need to do is encourage accountable governance in South Africa. Every last one of us needs to do that.
Thank you very much for joining us today and giving us your views. That's Advocate Paul Hoffman on the line there. He, of course, is from Accountability Now, talking about, well, this report, the Pay Back the Money report, as it's become known on social media the last couple of days. Now, we're going to take a short break, but of course, when we come back, we'll speak to Professor Lesiba Tefo from UNISA about, well, the latest call from COSATU to call on the back of this for the nationalization of the Reserve Bank. What do you think about that? After the break.
I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but I want you to tell us, who are these 3 people that you have opened corruption charges against at the Brooklyn police station? How senior are they?
Very.
Are these people who are serving in the political office of the executive mayor?
Yes.
Which means they are no longer working for the city now.
Well, I can tell you that one of them is actually finding themselves employed in another municipality.
You are not going to tell us the names?
No, you're not going to get names from me.
Are people still getting free Wi-Fi in Tshwane?
People are still getting free Wi-Fi, and we will actually make it one of the basic services that our residents will get.
Staying with apartheid-era bailouts, COSATU is calling for the nationalization of the Reserve Bank. Now, this follows that leaked preliminary report by the former public protector, Thuli Madonsela, which found that Absa Bank irregularly benefited by billions of rands in loans made to Reserve Bank to Bancorp at the point in time, which was then later incorporated into Absa before 1994. Now, to take the story further, we are joined in our Pretoria studios by Professor Lesiba Tefo, a political analyst from UNISA. Professor, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis, and to the listeners.
Now, what is your sense of the leaked public protector's findings on Absa? Do you think that's going to become a terrible, horrible political mess for not just the country, but for Absa in general?
Well, I think it will be a mess as it already is, for all the players in this regard, be it the Office of the Public Protector, the politicians and business as such. I'm saying this precisely because it does look like a proxy war being waged, and this is used as an alibi or an excuse thereof.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is a huge sum of money. There was a suggestion that the bailout that was done to Bancorp now stands at about 2.25 billion rand. That's much more than any corruption scandal that we uncovered since 1994. What do you make of that, and is that money that Absa is supposed to pay back?
Look, If indeed there is any wrong committed by ABSA, they must pay back the money. But you and I are talking about a report, right? A preliminary report. Is it worth this discussion at this stage? Certainly, precisely because there are other agendas that are informing this debate right now. Under normal circumstances, procedure and process would advise, wait until everybody's given a chance to make his or an input, and then we have a final definitive report that nobody would say, had I been given an opportunity, this wouldn't have been the case. So I'm arguing that this report should be deferred and let all the players be given an opportunity to make their input as they have requested, and rightly so, as the law provides. So that ultimately when we sit and discuss it, and we say, pay back the money, it is duly informed. There are reports that preceded this report that suggested otherwise. And indeed, the principal author of the report is saying to you and me, is this my report or something else?
Now, Professor, we earlier spoke to Advocate Paul Hoffman, and he says there's not enough accountability on this issue because the investigation that was done by CIEX found that that money is available and should be paid back by ABSA, but the previous administration decided not to follow suit. What do you make of that?
Yes, indeed. Shouldn't we follow up on that? Shouldn't we investigate that? Is a report recommending that based precisely on the previous report? I would be more interested in knowing why it was not acted upon by the previous government. And I'm indeed more interested to know why now this thing is leaked now. And leaked indeed, that's a key word, right?
Yes.
By which office and to serve which interest? We cannot, if we want to approach this in the interest of building a solid institutions of government intended to buttress democracy, without questioning the bona fides of some of the employees and the leaders of those institutions.
Now, some suggest that this is apartheid-era bailout just before 1994, Professor. And we know when this administration or the new democratic dispensation came to being, that there was no money basically in South Africa. Did the Broederbond at the time, you think, had an unusual hand in this particular transaction?
Yes, they might have had. And I will remain cautious and circumspect in my responses until we have the final report. They might have had. And indeed, experience tells you and I that on the eve of a new government, especially post-liberation wars, there is always serious looting of state resources by those who were presiding over those resources and the governments of the day. This might have been the case. This seems to have been to be the case, but I would want to speak in definitive terms. Indeed, if there is money due to the state, from what I've read, from what I'm reading, Sanlam was a mutual. The principal beneficiaries were the pensioners. Are those the people to be pursued? But these are the nuances that needs to be dealt with before you arrive at a solid report that can test that can send the master in court. Because certainly there will be challenges. I heard Christol say, if needs be, I will challenge the report. And there will be many more in the queue who will say, we are willing and ready and capable, and we have the wherewithal to challenge it.
Is it worthwhile, Professor, you think, that we take a look, that government should actually take a look at all apartheid-era industries and business that did a business with the government and that benefited from the previous administration?
I would be happy if we could do that. But equally, with the same vigor and zest, we do same when it comes to this. Because, you know, some people would say, this is the right thing to do, but why now? But okay, it's never too late to do the right thing. But then, is it because we are debating the state capture now that we are now willing to go back and dig in history what could offset the current debate? If that is the thinking, I find it regrettable. But if there are wrongs committed yesterday, and they can benefit the people if money were to be recouped, let's do it. But let it not be done in a spirit that seems to suggest state capture as understood today is equal to scape capture yesterday. Therefore, two wrongs will make a right. No, I won't go along with that.
Just briefly, Professor, how do we fix this mess? Or do we wait for the final report?
For me, let's wait for the final report. And if anybody should pay back the money in the interest of the wretched of the earth, so be it. And indeed, for those who committed this prior to 1994, and even those, right, who are benefiting now, purporting to do it in the interest of the wretched of the earth, let them also pay back the money. And if we can at least close the taps so that there is no undue benefit, right, by those who have captured the current state, let us also close those taps.
Professor, thank you so much for your time and joining us in our Pretoria studios.
Thank you.
That was Professor Lesifa Tefo, a political analyst, joining us, of course, in our Pretoria studios now. As you heard there, he says, close those taps. And that could also relate to the leaked reports that we've seen lately. How do we close those taps? Well, there you have it. We also have a poll relating to this.
The viewers don't care about a final report, Elvis.
Yeah.
They say pay back the money now.
Yes?
Pay back the money now. That's what they say. If you took the money back then, you took the food out of our children's mouths, they say. Should ABSA pay back the apartheid bailout money? 132 votes in, 84% say yes, pay back the money. And this is a fairly good indication of what the thinking is out in the streets. Overwhelming majority are saying, just pay back the money.
Yeah,
Move on.
Only 16% are saying no, and I would like to investigate that 16%, but that is what our people are saying.
Yeah, lots of tweets coming in as well. Let's have a look what you guys are tweeting us, what you guys are thinking when you're saying us. Lawrence Bailey, welcome back, Lawrence. Nice to hear from you again. Newsroom, more than 2 billion South African rands could come in handy for our university students who struggle to pay for fees. Should ABSA pay back the money? We'll speak to university students shortly, Lawrence, to find out what they think about this kind of thing. He comes back and he says, corruption is corruption. Everybody must be treated equal. If President Zuma had to pay back the money, then ABSA must duly follow, he says.
This one from Mahaboka says, it seems like only white monopoly capital are not for the poll. There you go. That investigation I was talking about, hashtag ABSA pay back the money with immediate effect. So says Mahaboka.
Tough crowd, Elvis, tough crowd. No prisoners. Jacob says, Newsroom, it's simple. Pay back the money. That's a sentiment on the poll as well. That's how the people are voting also. They're saying, just pay it back. Pay it back already.
KB says, recently ABSA stood on an unknown moral high ground and close Oak Bay accounts. Well, we need the same determination. ABSA, pay please. That's another hashtag there.
You know, there's an axiom that says, be careful what you ask for you might just get it. Getting it, yeah? Getting it big time. But a little bit of housekeeping before we go to the students now. The front pages from around the globe quickly. Let's just see what's happening elsewhere in the world. We'll start in Europe. The Daily Telegraph reports that Theresa May has set out a blueprint which will guide Britain's negotiation to leave the European Union over the next couple of years. Then in New York, the Daily News says 8 men have as much wealth as the 3.6 billion people who make up the poorest half of the world's population. Send us your tweets on our question of the day because it deals with exactly that. Finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that a knife-wielding Palestinian was shot and killed last night following an attempted stabbing attack on Israeli Defense Force soldiers at a checkpoint outside the West Bank city of Tulkarm. Now we go to our Facebook page quickly to have a look what you can get there. Don't forget to like our page, guys. Scores of firefighters, well, they continue fighting the battle, the vegetation fire in the Paarl area of the Boland throughout last night and continue to do so. Then the World Bank says government should use its tax incentives more effectively to attract private investment and grow the economy. The bank sees the economy growing at 1.1% year in South Africa in 2017. Finally, Social Development Minister Batabile Dlamini says the Siyaka Daycare Centre opened in East London on Tuesday is set to change the lives of more than 80 local children. Their little good news story. All of those and more on our Facebook page. You can also go to sabc.co.za/news and you'll get all the latest. Now, after a short break, we'll speak to Black First, Land First student movement about ABSA paying back the money and what they would like to see the money been used for? Interesting one after a short break. There, he's waiting for us.
Give me that paperwork. Where is your paperwork?
I don't know what's going on. Suddenly I'm locked up.
This is not fair, Senator Twasezana. Not fair.
Ukuputse rent ka 200. Hape ukupula ka 200. Uri ngwana uyi 150 plus koloi leone tlamehile in another one 150.
I'm just the one to lock you out.
Yes,
I
just want
to
lock me then out.
You are starting gangsterism.
No.
Before I carry on, I just have to put out a correction. The SABC report was not leaked. Yeah, it's the only one at the moment that's not leaked. But the SABC report was not leaked. It's been handed over. We're in possession of it. We'll study it and get back to you in due course, as you say. Now, black first, land first. They say all those who are implicated in the Apartheid-era's unlawful bailout should pay back the money. Also, the Black First, Land First student movement calls upon the unemployed black youth, those who are being economically and academically excluded and expelled, they say, as well as those who are interdicted, who are facing legal action, to come together and demand that all those implicated in the money stolen at the latter stages of apartheid, including ABSA, to pay back the money. Now, in our Durban studio, we're joined by Mandla Mbuyisa, who is the Deputy President for the Black First, Land First student movement. Mandla, very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us here on Newsroom.
Thank you, Evan, for inviting us, and I would like to greet all black people who are watching.
Now, Mandla, you should greet the white people also, Mandla. They're also watching. Mandla, tell me quickly, my friend.
Yes.
You guys have been very vocal about the ABSA pay back the money thing. Tell me, why are you guys so vocal about it, and why are you so passionate about it?
Okay. The first thing that I would like to say is you can't speak about ABSA and paying back the money and you do not speak about the Black First, Land First movement, which has ensured that this issue stays on the public domain. The issue is brought back to the table and it is discussed because we know that on 18 July, 36 members of the Black First, Land First movement were arrested for going to the Public Protector's office to demand that she must conclude her report on the money that was stolen from the South African Reserve Bank in the later stages of apartheid, including individuals like Johan Rupert and his father, Antonio Rupert, Maria Ramos, who are implicated in this report, to pay back the money. And these 26 members were detained for 8 days, demanding that this money must be brought back, and the public protector, who's a blessee of Johan Rupert, to conclude that report, because she has been sitting on top of it, protecting white capital and obviously white people. And this goes further. We have seen the media silence on this issue. I mean, since last week, Friday, when the story leaked out, the media has not said anything about it. And like how they did not say anything about 26 members, black people who have been arrested for just protesting and demanding that what was stolen from black people must be returned back to black people. And as we are saying in our statement, that this money must be used for the unemployed black youth, must go to fees, and this money must go to the realization of the call that has been made by the black students and the black majority in this country of free decolonized education.
Now, just quickly give us an update on the status of those people, those of your members, the 26 or 36 that you're talking about since this protest.
The 26 members who were arrested in the Public Protector's Office were led by the national convener of the Black First, Land First movement, who is called Andile Mqitama. After the report in 1997 by Paul Hoffman, we have seen him talking here, the report came back and the Public Protector did not say anything. Paul Hoffman has not said anything, and the people who brought this conversation back are the members of the Black First, Land First, who were arrested, who even went outside and did a picket to demand that this money must be brought back, and other members of PLF were there.
Now tell me, Mandla, in this report there's a call for the President to institute a commission of inquiry into this ABSA issue, but also into other issues of apartheid collusion and the like. Would you like to see that go ahead, and what shape must it take?
The inquiry that was demanded by the BLF members in December, where all of us wrote to the presidency to tell him that he must launch a commission of inquiry into the banks of South Africa, also including the state capture reports, because we believe that the people who have captured these states are white people since 1652, because the first thing that they did was to take back the land. And if you speak about the state capture, you have to speak about the land, because any real economy is based on land. These people must be able to bring back the land that belongs to black people, and the people who own this land are white people. And this goes to the question that we are asking as Black First, Land First student movement, that if we are calling for free decolonized education, how is it possible that we are not calling out the people who are implicated in this 26 billion and who are land thieves, by the way? Johan Rupert, who owns the majority of Western Cape and is the Chancellor of the University of Stellenbosch, who has employed Thuli Madonsela after her end of term as the public protector. These people, Johan Rupert and the others, must be called by the Fees Must Fall movement and demand that they must bring back this 26 billion, because they are the ones who were involved in that scandal, and others, and organizations such as Sanlam, ABSA, FNB, and Nedbank. And we must bear in mind that ABSA is not paying back 26 billion, but it's paying back a portion of that money. There are more people that we still need to call out, that they must bring back this money.
Mandla, thank you for joining us. We've run out of time, my friend. I'll give you 10 seconds to greet South Africa, everybody, including the whites, the blacks, the Indians, the coloreds, everybody.
In our definition, okay, thank you, leader.
Thank you, Mandla.
Okay, yeah, like in our definition of blackness, we include coloreds, Indians, and the so-called Africans.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mandla, for joining us. Yeah. Interesting views that Mandla and the Black First, Land First movement have on, of course, the apartheid bailout report as it's become known. He's the deputy president of the Black First, Land First student movement. He came to us live from Durban, and he has real interesting views indeed. Now, of course, we move on, and we've got a question of the day which deals with inequality, which is just as important as everything that's gone on. We're in Davos once again, and we're talking about inequality, but the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and that gap is widening every year. Within 10 years, we will have a dollar trillionaire on this planet. Sick. So we ask you, why does this gap between the rich and the poor continue to widen? Stibo Tabobache says, Newsroom, the exploitative capitalist system we live in makes the rich richer and at the expense of the poor, he says. Hardcore extrovert comes. He says the rich are out there working hard while the poor are sleeping on themselves. Oh, Camp Muketi, that's a tough one. Newsroom, and they're too depending on government instead of waking up and doing it for themselves. With a sad face, he says. That's Camp Muketi Jali. Lawrence Bailey comes. At the end of the day, education plays a vital role in bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. He comes back, he said, if government invests more in education, like creating the best structures, building more schools, it will go a long way. we are one of the biggest spend per percentage point on education in the world, Lawrence. So government is spending the money, we have to do the learning, I suppose.
Over the last few years, something has come to mind, the fact that we haven't won a World Cup yet, and I think we all know that. For me to make it to the 2019 World Cup, I can't play every series in every format for the next few years. So I've made myself unavailable for the New Zealand Test series. I will be there for the ODIs for the rest of the year. And definitely not retiring out of Test cricket, that's for sure, because I still have a plan of coming back at some stage.
Is AB de Villiers more equal than other cricketers in South Africa?
That is the question, really.
Is he more equal than other cricketers?
You know, it's actually quite interesting yet that he had the gumption to come out and tell the whole world that he seems to think that he can tell Cricket South Africa when he plays and when he doesn't play.
Cricket South Africa have come out, Harun Lorgat, and he said, no, he's not picking and choosing his games. We're managing his workload. But he was the one who came out and said, I'm not going to play tests in
New Zealand. Yeah, I'm available. I'm going to play the T2. In fact, I've got my eye on the 2019 World Cup, and as you all know, we haven't won it, and I'm going to save myself for the 2019
Shouldn't
World
it be managed a little bit better then?
I think the entire process should have been managed a lot better. I'm hoping that what AB did was just a faux pas. That he's not speaking to larger things that I control myself, because Harun Lorgat did come out and say, no, once you get back on that treadmill, there's no rest.
I hope that it doesn't cause unhappiness within the squad, because the squad is very settled and very happy and very well led by Faf du Plessis and JP Duminy, I must add, because the relationship between the two of them is what's driving this team forward at the moment.
No, 100%. And I think what you're saying, I think everybody can back up. It is spoken on the field. We can see it. They're winning their matches and extremely well at that.
Thank you very much, Kendall Mahamati. I'll give us a complete update on that story and others at about 10:40. That's in 40 minutes' time. We're going to take a little break. It's been a very interesting first hour of the show. We'll try and keep it going in the next hour when we're back with you at the top at 10 o'clock.
According to the report, some people believe that all healthcare and education will be better for the next generation.
Young people want a good life, should stay in their countries rather than immigrate.
Kenya is the world's leading exporter of black tea, but oversupply and variable weather conditions often lead to global price fluctuations.
Tea factories now need 20 hectares for specialty tea products to be licensed.
The South African cricket team has clinched a 2-0 Test series win over Australia on the 4th day of the second Test in Hobart. Now the Proteas recorded an emphatic victory, winning by an innings and 80 runs with more than a day to spare.
Stay tuned to News Today from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News. What was, the week like in terms of CITES?
I saw there was a news insert about there being genetically engineered sort of rhino horns that have been introduced now. And then that has sort of now been rejected. They're saying that it's sort of going to promote poaching as per se.
The concern that's been raised by law enforcement in that particular regard has been that how do you distinguish between the original and the fake?
Yes.
Because it's going to make it difficult to police.
The rhino horn is the same quality as the nail. If you want something from the rhino horn, just cut your nail and do whatever. What was most striking for me was how the pangolin came into the picture. That was interesting for me because a few years ago in Zimbabwe, if you found a pangolin and you handed it over, you would have an audience with the president.
Wow.
Yeah, and you would be given a certain amount of money. And once that program started, almost every week there was somebody who was getting an audience with the president.
Information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are two things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
Yeah, we're just fact-checking myself and Kendall so we don't get it wrong. It's just on 10 a.m. Central African time, that is. You're watching Newsroom. Thank you for being with us. Kendall, anything that you want to report?
I will tell you, this has been like a day to start. You know, it's been a cracker of a day with news coming out of our ears, and we've also got opinions coming out of all the, kind of the woodwork.
That's what the show's about. It's about giving you at home a platform to air your views. Ultimately, the aim of discussion or argument is progress, not victory. We are trying to progress our nation, progress our people. Kendall, thank you.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'm thinking everything that we do here, right here, is to actually assist you, give you a platform to actually tell us how you think we can actually get forward to where we need to get to.
Now, of course, today we've got a couple of focuses. First, the one that didn't get such a lot of attention, of course, but we're doing a theme on it tomorrow. Now, Oxfam South Africa, they estimate, it shows that 8 men around the world, they own the same wealth as the poorest half of the world. In South Africa, it's 3 men that own the same as well.
Just one golf cart.
Yeah, no, don't go there, Kendall. It's early doors, my friend. So that's what that's our question of the day. It's on the screen. Send us a tweet. We haven't received any new tweets on this in the last 10 minutes or so, so we're not going to put any of the old ones up, right? But we're also conducting a poll, of course, and the leaked preliminary report by former public protector Thuli Madonsela, which found that Absa Bank irregularly benefited by billions of rands in loans made by the Reserve Bank to Bancorp in the dying days of apartheid. So we're asking this, Kendall, this question. How do you view this question? 142 people have voted now.
This question is key. It speaks to a lot of stuff that's been happening over the last 50 years, so to speak, and that change over from pre-1994 to 1994, and it says, should Absa pay back the apartheid bailout money, is the question.
This report was written, cut under the lead, a state of capital report written in a rush, released totally clumsy in my view. And that what raises the questions, because there is a report on that statement of the Absa Bank. Would like to see it.
And we have concluded a provisional report. It was really just an administrative error that prevented me from signing that report. Another question I'm not going to answer is the alleged current report the same as my history? Will just tell the truth about what I concluded and what is now on the table.
Yeah, send us your views at SABC Newsroom. The bailout, the apartheid bailout is the hashtag that is called. At SABC Newsroom is where you tweet us. But right now, let's get the show on the road and have a look at our top stories. Parliament's ad hoc committee probing the SABC's affairs recommends that the appointment of a new GCEO, COO and company secretary at the public broadcaster should be finalised ASAP, as soon as possible. The public protector, Usisiwe Mqwebane, has laid criminal charges over the leaking of a preliminary report on an apartheid-era bailout. Then more than 50 people are now confirmed dead when a Nigerian Air Force jet reportedly attacked a refugee camp accidentally in the northeastern parts of the country. Those are your top news stories right now. Let's go over to Kendall for your sport.
Thank you very much, Eben. Quite a lot happening in the world of sports, quite a lot happening on and off the field. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you on the sport.
I've made myself unavailable for the New Zealand Test Series. I will be there for the ODIs for the rest of the year. And definitely not retiring out of Test cricket, that's for sure, because I still have a plan of coming back at some stage.
AB de Villiers creates a conundrum for Cricket South Africa as he tells the world that he's making himself unavailable for selection for the upcoming Test Series in New Zealand.
He's up against the best goalkeeper in Africa. He beats him.
The Black Stars of Ghana get their AFCON campaign after a winning start, edging Uganda's Cranes by a single penalty goal. All aboard the Fed Express, says Roger Federer snuffles a late fight back by American Ruben Mayer to advance to the third round.
Gave him a good run for his money.
All this and more I'll have for you later on in the Sports Bulletin about 10:40. For now, it is back to Evan, who's got the news.
Yeah, thank you, Kendall. Very good morning to you. If you've just joined us, you're watching Newsroom here on SABC News. Time now for us to look at our top story. Now, Parliament's ad hoc committee probing into the SABC's affairs say the appointment of a new GCEO, COO and company secretary at the public broadcaster should be finalised as soon as possible. This is just one of the recommendations in the committee's working document, which has been leaked on social media. The committee is due to meet over the next 2 days to finalise its report. The report further recommends that political interference at the SABC must be condemned, attended to and exposed immediately to the SABC's accounting authority and to Parliament. The document also says the Communications Committee should play a greater oversight role over the SABC to ensure the separation of powers between the SABC and the Minister. It further says the Communication Committee's oversight role should ensure that the shareholder is not involved in the day-to-day operations of the broadcaster. Now, to give us more on the SABC inquiry, on the preliminary report of which the SABC is in possession, we can confirm we are joined by our parliamentary reporter, Bulalani Philip. A very good morning to you, Bulalani. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning to you, Eben, and to the viewers.
Bulalani, firstly, just put things into perspective. There's a lot been going on. Has this report now been handed over to the SABC?
Well, Eben, firstly, let's correct the fact that this is a working document that has been compiled by the ad hoc committee that is probing the governance affairs of the SABC. It's not even in a draft format. It's just a collation of all the evidence that has been put before the committee. Now, what will happen going forward is that the committee will meet tomorrow and Friday, and they will deliberate on this working document with a view of coming to a draft report. And that draft report, if the timeline of the committee continues as it's planned, that draft report is expected to be compiled on Tuesday next week, wherein that report will then be forwarded to all the parties that are implicated in that report for them to respond on the findings or the preliminary findings of the committee. And those parties will be given 2 weeks to respond to the committee, wherein then the committee will then deliberate on those responses juxtaposed with the preliminary or the draft report, and thereafter, the committee will then come to a final report. So there's still time to engage what is before the committee in terms of both the working document and the draft report that will be compiled next week.
Bulalani, there's lots of bits and bobs and lots of misinformation, it seems, on social media, but that's just the age of social media that we live in. And of course, we as journalists have to respond to whatever information comes around. But what are you seeing coming out, some of the recommendations of this draft, as you call it?
Well, this working document makes several recommendations. One of those is saying that the Parliament must expedite the formal dissolution of the board of the SABC. Now, you'll remember that the current board has got no non-executive members of the board. They have all resigned, and the only remaining members of the board are the 3 executive directors, which are the acting GCEO, the acting COO, and the acting CFO. So what the committee is saying in the working document is that the formal process of dissolving the current board must be expedited, and the new board that comes into place must ensure that it investigates all the irregular and wasteful expenditure that have been cited by the Auditor General when he presented in the committee. The third point that the resolutions are making is that the SABC must review the TNA business breakfast shows that are working together with the SABC with the view of ensuring that, the SABC does not lose any money from those TNA breakfasts, or the SABC does not cross-subsidize, the other entity, which happens to be the competitor of the SABC. The fourth point, actually, that also is critical is that the resolutions are saying that the SABC must also conduct a forensic investigation into the 550 million multi-choice deal of sharing archives of the SABC with MultiChoice. Of course, there has been conflicting, testimonies with regards to that deal, and what the resolutions are saying is that the SABC must seek, this forensic audit opinion, or rather forensic investigation, with a view of checking the legality of that archive deal, because it seems that, the SABC might have maybe gone beyond, the jurisdiction of ensuring that, it keeps, that national asset.
Now, the inquiry sits today. They're expected to sit today to have further discussions. Of course, one of the agenda points is it's one that stands out, and that is the request by the UDM that Mr. Claudio Mutsuneng must be given an opportunity to represent himself and put his points across. Is that going to happen today?
Look, Eben, today the committee will not be sitting other than it will be just receiving some additional documentations from some of the witnesses. The committee is due to only meet tomorrow and on Friday. Now, on the issue of Mr. Claudio Mutsuneng, the UDM has actually requested the committee to reconsider its position on not calling Mr. Mutsuneng to come and give testimony to this committee. Now, he's arguing that most of the witnesses that have come before the committee have actually, in one way or the other, have implicated Mr. Mutsuneng, and they are saying that in terms of the rules of natural justice and the rules of fairness, it would only make logical sense that Mr. Mutsuneng come in person to come and respond to all the allegations that have been leveled against him. Now, of course, the committee has taken a decision previously that, Mr. Mutsuneng would not be actually called before the committee. Perhaps maybe they are considering giving him the report if it implicates him, and therefore he may be given the opportunity to make a written submissions. But in terms of, that kind of thing, that UDM will be given an opportunity to tomorrow to come and persuade the committee in the sense of trying to come and try and change the committee's mind if it comes with a cogent argument.
Finally, Bulelani, just give us an idea. Former board chairperson Ellen Chabalala, she's asked for an extension. How will that affect the work of this committee?
Well, you remember, if I can take you back, that Ms. Ellen Chabalala came before the committee on Friday last week. And amongst some of the testimonies that she made is she implicated that, the ANC, the DA, as well as the South African Communist Party, the SACP, there were some party members or politicians who had tried to politically interfere with the operations of the SABC. Now, the committee had instructed her to actually make a written submissions detailing all the incidents that she's citing, as well as naming the people that she's talking about. Now, her deadline to make that written submission was yesterday, but she actually asked the committee to give her an extension, and that extension is only up until the end of today. So that kind of written submission will be given to the committee today.
Thank you very much, Bulelani. That's our own parliamentary reporter, Bulelani Philip, coming to you live from Parliament. Now, back to one of the other top stories of the day. We've dealt extensively with it in the first hour of the show. Public Protector Busisiwe Mqwebane has laid criminal charges over the leaking of a preliminary report on an apartheid-era bank bailout. The report recommends that ABSA pay back 2.25 billion South African rand. An investigation conducted in 1997 by a UK-based asset recovery agency, CIEX, apparently suggested to the Reserve Bank it should recover money given to Bancorp. According to the report, the Reserve Bank gave a financial bailout to Bancorp under apartheid. ABSA is the bank that took over Bancorp. A subsequent investigation by the Davos panel of experts found that ABSA's shareholders did not derive any undue benefit from the Reserve Bank's intervention. As such, no claim of restitution could be pursued against ABSA.
You will recall that one weekly newspaper last week published contents of a leaked public protector report. And so the public protector today opened a criminal case at the Brooklyn police station for the police to look into this whole matter.
What is the leak about? Which report is it related to?
This is a report into, or the report following an investigation into allegations that the South African government failed to act on the so-called CIX report, as well as to recover public funds.
Is it the same money that Andile and his company or group were fighting about the public protector?
Yes, it is related to the matter that the BLF has been raising with the public protector.
Remaining with the preliminary report on the Apartheid-era bank bailout story, former public protector Thuli Madonsela says the leaked provisional report into state looting in the dying days of apartheid was concluded well before she left office. The leaked preliminary report recommends that ABSA pay back over 2.25 billion rand stemming from an alleged bailout by the apartheid government. She says it was an administration error that prevented her from signing the report.
When a report was given to this government after the Apartheid came into existence, this is post-1998, was it processed properly, or was there maladministration in processing that report? And if there was maladministration, was harm occasioned to it? So we on the basis of that, I investigated, did a preliminary first, interviewed the Minister of Finance, and interviewed Reserve Bank, and then eventually I've interviewed virtually everyone: Chris Stolz, former Reserve Bank Governor, President Thabo Mbeki, Frank Chikane, and former Minister of Finance Trevor Michael, current Minister of Finance, and Mr. Billy Masetla, and ultimately Michael Woodley in London was also interviewed. Regarding do I regard it as a lifeboat or as a gift? Already, Judge Davis answered that question about this transaction having been a wrong transaction. So that was not really an issue. For us, was the money payable and was the money paid? And we didn't have to go into whether it was a wrong deal or right deal. We went into the agreement itself, whether the agreement said the money was payable. And if the agreement said the money was payable, was it paid? And what findings did we arrive at? I can't say at this stage. Secondly, we had to answer the question of legally, is the money now recoverable? We firstly had to look at the behavior of government on receiving the Davis report and receiving the Hill report to say, was there wrongdoing in how those reports we would and based on that, we arrived at the conclusion that I arrived at. When I left, we had concluded a provisional report. It was really just an administrative error that prevented me from signing that report.
Now we move on. Firefighters continued to battle the blazing pile in the Western Cape throughout the night. More than 100 people voluntarily were evacuated from farms yesterday as a precaution. The fire has destroyed at least one house and more than 1,000 hectares of vegetation. Helicopters water-bombed the area until sunset. In the city itself, fire services monitored the Vredehuk area in the city bowl for possible new flare-ups. The fire on the slopes of Table Mountain damaged 4 houses and gutted a security office earlier this week. Now, the fourth industrial revolution remains a highly topical issue at the World Economic Forum. It was the main theme last year. It speaks to the new digital economy and fast-paced developments in technology, which are creating advancements in manufacturing, healthcare and other sectors, but also come with the reality of people losing jobs as robots or machines take over traditional jobs.
Digitalization now underpins modern economies, and the fear of computers and machines taking over jobs traditionally performed by humans is very real. It's happening in manufacturing, in agriculture, the finance sector and beyond. It's a global problem, and leaders are discussing how to deal with its opportunities and challenges, and education will have to play a big role.
The barriers to entry are higher. So you now need to have some access to higher education. You now need to have some knowledge of these technologies. You now need to be able to position yourself in that way. So I think our challenges in the future are going to be to bring more and more people into this kind of education, into this kind of awareness of the skills development needs of the future.
Labour unions say workers will have to adapt through ongoing education, but South Africa has the additional crisis of young people now deemed as unemployable. But there may be a glimmer of hope.
We have already started with a program where business and government and labour look to take those people that we normally refer to that are not in employment, that are not in education, that are not in training. So we want to create a new category where we call it on-the-job training, because we want to take about 350,000 in the first year and put them in jobs for a year at least, so that they can get that necessary workplace training and experience.
Businesses say it's inevitable that they'll have to reskill their employees as the disruptive forces of digitalization take hold.
That has impacts both on our customers, and from a customer point of view should create a seamless, faster customer environment. So there are lots of positives in that direction. But from a staff point of view, it really requires us to reskill our staff to make sure that they have skills that are relevant in the fourth industrial revolution.
Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa echoed the need for South Africa to be innovative in finding solutions for its problems, particularly the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty and inequality. The tripartite government, business and labour solution to create 1 million learnerships over the next 3 years should certainly serve as a good start. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Davos, Switzerland.
The ANC is clamping down on structures discussing names of people who should succeed President Jacob Zuma. The National Working Committee resolved yesterday that decision to stop endorsements is binding, and those who fail to abide by the resolution will be held accountable. The warning comes days after the ANC Women's League launched a campaign for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, while COSATU has endorsed Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa.
We also will be writing to all branches today to inform them of that particular decision, and will hold people accountable.
It is a fire, and the question is, will the ANC be able to contain it? The decision not to discuss names was made by the NEC last year, yet it didn't stop the ANC Women's League from endorsing Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma.
Are you not limiting the choices that branches have? Maybe they'll find another woman there that they'd like to have and put onto the ballot paper. And all of a sudden in the country and in the media space, there's only one name floating, or two names floating, or three names floating. That's why these lists become quite divisive.
With this comes the debate over the ANC's electoral system. Some ANC stalwarts want it reviewed to prevent manipulation through slates and vote buying.
That issue of having a team that will ultimately oversee the elections is in the discussion right now. Yes. It's in the discussion right now. But the debate is, don't give a small group of people powers to put together a list. Allow members to generate the list. It must be a team that goes through names that come from the branches. How we get the hybrid there is something that we're busy discussing.
Meanwhile, the party says preparations are underway for the policy conference in June. Discussion documents will be released next month, with a review of the National Development Plan expected to become central. Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The ANC also addressed a number of topical economic issues. The party Secretary-General offered views on the ongoing saga, including the Bancorp bought by ABSA and the bailout it received from the Reserve Bank. He also questioned the conduct of ratings agencies, saying they are no angels following an admission of wrongdoing that contributed to the 2008 financial crisis.
The ANC Secretary General and his deputy engaging the media today, this a day after Moody's accepted to pay a fine following findings of wrongdoing in relation to the ratings of the subprime crisis. Moody's agreed to pay an equivalent of 11.7 billion rand for its role in the ratings of risky U.S. mortgage securities in the run-up to the 2008 financial crisis. This is resolving allegations that the firm contributed to the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression of the 1920s.
Rating agencies are not angels. They have a particular ideological outlook. Somebody is funding them. They move from a particular angle. That's why we always emphasize that when we deal with the rating agencies, we must always ensure that we're not working for rating agencies. We do what is right for South Africa, and rating agencies must rate us on our work.
ANC Deputy Secretary General is calling for fairness when rating agencies do their work.
We've been very concerned about the political slanting of rating agencies and regarding political slanting as a risk, which actually is not compatible with examining whether or not a country can repay its loans. And South Africa has not had one lapse in payment of any of its bonds anyway.
The ANC would like a speedy finalization of the Public Protector report on whether Barclays Bank is liable in any way to pay for the controversial Bangkok bailout. COSATU released a statement saying a commission of inquiry should be set up to get to the bottom of this matter and to investigate other illegal transactions that may have occurred before 1994 elections.
This report was written, cut under the lead, a state of capital report written in a rush, released totally clumsily, in my view. And that what raises the questions, because there is a report on that statement of the Absa Bank. Would like to see it.
The ANC says the role of the Reserve Bank is being debated. The issues raised at this briefing are likely to become part of the discourse at the upcoming National Policy Conference of the ruling party in June this year.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's social media and technology landscape.
21st century economies rely on technology to truly thrive.
We have quite a comprehensive portfolio of interventions in the tech entrepreneurship space.
And Africans are using tech and social media to solve the continent's unique challenges.
App Nigeria is an online marketplace.
Radio Vibe is a social media platform for radio music.
That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, mega bank Absa could be forced to pay back 2.25 billion South African rand to the fiscus for an unlawful apartheid-era bank bailout. But is Absa likely to pay back the money? Now, for more on this, we are joined by economic analyst Lumkile Mondi. A very good morning to you, Lumkile. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
How do you read this situation with ABSA? Firstly, are they going to pay it out? Are they going to pay back the money? And is it political?
It's political. Here we've got a leaked report. In the midst of really interesting report released by the Public Protector around a family as well as an institution that's investigated public sector money.
All reports are leaked in South Africa, isn't it?
This one was not. Unfortunately, the report that preceded this one was not leaked. It was a formal process. People tried to stop the release of that report. This one came as a surprise. One journalist got it and all in the media, and everyone is making it as though it's the fact. The reality is that we need to get more information because neither ABSA nor the central bank, the Southern Reserve Bank, has had an opportunity to respond to the allegations contained in the leaked report.
Now, the question on the screen, and that's what the question that our viewers are saying, yes, 80% of the people who are voting on a poll are saying they must pay back the money. Will ABSA pay back the money?
Well, there's no pay in the first place. Remember that the apartheid regime was evil. There was corruption in the apartheid regime. In the settlement that was cut pre-94, and the sunset clause that was agreed upon, and the fact that
the
as
sun
researchers,
has set already, hasn't it?
It hasn't said.
It's set already. You don't talk about sunset clauses now.
We wouldn't be here. We're here because we've got a beautiful constitution which was drafted and we all agreed to it. So the point I'm trying to make is that in the current situation, whereby the pressing issues for South Africa are to create employment, reduce inequality, and to ensure that not one family goes to bed without food.
Yeah.
That's the focus. The focus is not looking on the past, whereby there is nothing we can change towards that. And in the case of ABSA, in fact, ABSA is owned by new shareholders, and the horse has long bolted.
You say the horse is long bolted, but then you talk about we are bound by the sunset clauses from 25 years ago. I don't get that.
So my explanation was trying to explain how we've transformed the country. That we came from an apartheid.
Yeah, but you say the one thing that contradicts the other one immediately.
Fortunately, that's what I'm understanding. What I highlighted to you, was that there's a compromise.
Okay.
And in that compromise, issues were raised. Even General Bantu Lumisa raised an issue.
Yeah, but even compromises have to be developed. Over time, you can't say we made a compromise then and we are bound by it exponentially.
No,
surely it's a living thing that must be developed.
Then you have a new social contract. That's what I'm talking about. Let's engage on a new social contract. Here we've got people that are failing to do their work, that the poor continue to be marginalized, that the economy is underperforming, that inequality has grown, unemployment has grown. There is no discussion about how do we engage a society and make sure that those that are in power come out with policies that address this.
Surely
and we're caught up in the past. What does the past do to us for our future, for our children?
You business guys, you meet every year in Davos and you say, oh, we're going to close the gap between the rich and the poor. But it's as bad as it's ever been. So who's responsible? Surely not government officials.
Well, in fact, who make the rules? Who make the rules, Eben?
Money makes the rules, sir.
No, the policy makers, those people that you vote in power.
No, money makes the rules.
Those people that you vote in power in South Africa, the ANC government that voted in power, which are supposed to redress, has not come with policies for redress. So in the global economy, whether it's American politician,
you talk about redress
Russian,
and you talk about sunset clauses, which confuses me totally because I come from there. Let's park that because we are going to agree to disagree on it.
Very much.
Let's talk about what will happen if the public protector, the new public protector, starts going after private sector business that owes apartheid money?
Fortunately, as a researcher, we are very, very keen to get that information because one of the jobs that you do as researchers is to try and inquire for the benefit of the public. Because I've got students who are doing their masters, I've got others who want to do PhDs. That information, if any of the people that are watching have got that information, my students will love it because we need to revisit the past so that we understand what really happened. So that information, that data will be really handy for my students because they need to engage and tell the public what really actually happened.
So what's going to happen is what I'm asking you, not what the students are saying. What's going to happen? Are we going to be threatened with another downgrade by dodgy ratings agencies who are known to have colluded and who are known to have an agenda?
Fortunately, in the case of what we've seen of those rating agencies that have come forward and say and admitted guilt in wrongdoing, the reality is that if I've got money, Eben, you come to me to say, you know what, I want to buy a house in Honeydew. I need 5 million. I have to do a credit check. So similarly, the countries like South Africa, who live beyond that means 50% of debt to GDP ratio.
Everyone
for us
lives
to get
above
money.
the,
No,
this is your capitalism that you created, is living beyond the means. That's the capitalism. That's the American way, isn't it?
Well,
17 times they're over indebted. That's not, we're not even close to that.
Post-war, Eben, post-war, we have seen a huge rise of per capita incomes, whereby those that fought in the war, the millions who fought in the war, in Europe particularly, and America, have seen their living standard rising tremendously. And we've seen in South Africa as well, that people like me today...
You say South Africa lives beyond its means.
Let me finish. A guy like me in 1994 lived in Soweto, had one suit, and this system...
it's brought you many suits.
It's brought me many suits.
Yes.
But the point I'm making...
But that's why you're protecting the system, because you benefited.
No, the point I'm making, Eben, is that until we in South Africa come with policies that redress. At the moment, in season power...
Redress and policies that protect our interests, the ones that have benefited, you say.
Well,
is what I'm hearing you saying. Protect the ones that have benefited, is what you're telling me.
What I'm telling you, Eben, is that political parties have got a responsibility that when they stand on the podium committing to a social contract to deliver to the masses of our people, whether it's jobs, it's education, it's housing, they need to be held accountable.
So does business.
Only then.
So does business.
There's no argument. There's no argument.
Okay, that's where we leave it. Lumkile Mondi, I love talking to you. What suit? What's the name inside that suit, if I may ask?
I'll tell you now.
Yeah. Oh, Moos, you see,
yes.
benefited from this thing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Lumkile, for a very vibrant discussion. I would like you to come back, because there are lots of economic things that I want to talk about, because, you know, when economists talk about things, they like to put it in a language that we don't understand, but it really means quite simple things. What happens if a government bails out the banks in the country like we have had in America in 2008? It becomes a socialist country. But that's only my view, and we have to move on. Thanks, Lumkile.
It's a pleasure.
Now, one of the sad stories of the day, a Nigerian Air Force fighter jet on a mission against Boko Haram extremists mistakenly bombed a refugee camp on Tuesday, killing more than 100 refugees and aid workers and wounding 200 others. Military Commander Major General Lucky Irabo confirmed an accidental bombardment in the northeastern town of Ran near the border with Cameroon, saying some civilians were killed. It was believed to be the first time Nigeria's military has acknowledged making such a mistake in a region where villagers have in the past reported civilian casualties in the near-daily bombings targeting extremists.
These were the victims in the airstrike that was supposed to hit Boko Haram militants. Instead, the Nigerian Air Force strike hit a refugee camp in Ran, killing 50 people and injuring 120 others. Regional Military Commander General Lucky Irabor said they received reports of Boko Haram gathering in the area.
We got the coordinates, and I directed that the air should go to address the problem.
The strike came amid an offensive against Boko Haram over the last few weeks, and Irabor said it was a damaging mistake.
These are results of the fog of war. It's unfortunate. That's the reason why this war must come to an end.
6 Nigerian Red Cross members were also among the dead.
information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are two things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
Good morning to you. What a morning we're starting with. You're watching Newsroom. My name is Kendall Makhamati and we've got lots to cover this morning. We start with the news that former South African captain Abby de Villiers has dismissed any suggestions that he's given up on playing Test cricket. He has, however, made himself unavailable for the upcoming New Zealand Test series. The 32-year-old returns to international action in the third T20 against Sri Lanka in Cape Town next week. But before we get into that, here's CSA CEO Harun Logart reporting back to the media that after an exhaustive year-long process, Russell Domingo will stay on as coach of the Proteas.
You've also been aware that we've completed the review of the national team setup. There's no coach, there's no captain, no one will be fired. Because that's the easy way when things are tough in the years gone by. In fact, we've proven over the past few months that Russell and his team are the right people. Having said that, there's also a date and a time for them to call a day.
Something has come to mind, the fact that we haven't won a World Cup yet, and I think we all know that. For me to make it to the 2019 World Cup, I can't play every series in every format for the next few years. So I've made myself unavailable for the New Zealand Test series. I will be there for the ODIs for the rest of the year. And definitely not retiring out of Test cricket, that's for sure, because I still have a plan of coming back at some stage.
Well, there we have it. Now, to help us take this a little bit further, we've got Dumisima Kalima, the founder of BC Cricket Analysis, as well as former Titans coach, who's been here a couple of times. Interesting that we meet again, and this is what we're starting with. Does AB get to do this?
Just to correct you, former Lions assistant coach. But anyway,
I said Titans, didn't I?
Let's get straight into it. Yes, man, I think AB has played enough cricket. I think at the caliber of these players these days, that's what they tend to do. You know, I think he's earned his stripes. So I think if he calls shots like this, I think, you know, the board of South African cricket probably have to listen to him, because he's got a bigger goal, not just for himself, but for the country as well, looking at the 2019 World Cup.
But surely he's just one of 11 players. How can a player come out to the media and not have this conversation, mind you, behind closed doors with the CEO, convener, as well as his coach, but he comes and tells the whole world that, you know what, I have decided to make myself unavailable. How does he do that? Surely that must cause a little bit of ruckus in somebody's mind in this team?
Well, I don't think necessarily. I'm sure there must have been talks probably with the coach, you know, leading up to obviously this press release. But I don't think it was something that he thought over, you know, overnight. And I think it's well supported, which is good to see, you know, by the board, by the players, even by the national coach. I think the caliber of a player that he is, and what he's contributed to South African cricket over the years, I think when a player, you know, has a bigger goal, such as winning the World Cup, which South Africa hasn't done, I think you've got to listen to him. You know, he's a player, he's one of the best players in the world. You know, surely he's going to be missed in Test cricket, you know, all the innovative strokes. But he's got a bigger goal for the country, you know, and he's got a bigger goal for himself.
Even the CEO came in afterwards, off camera. He did say that, you know what, yes, you've had a great rest, that's wonderful, but once you get back onto that treadmill, there's no stop. So I think he was alluding, I'm taking that he was alluding to that same statement that I'm going to pick and choose.
Well, you know, that's Harun Logar's statement. But in terms of Test cricket itself, I think he's going to be surely missed. But I think I look forward to seeing AB, you know, contributing in the one-day series in the T20, and let's hope he lifts the trophy in 2019.
Oh, very nice. We've also got news that Russell Domingo and his coaching staff is going nowhere, and surely right now we can't do anything about Russell. He's actually been providing the goods. He's put the numbers on the board. I mean, the team that he's actually coaching right now is unstoppable. So why remove a man when, you know, when the ship is unstoppable? I think he's gone, he's beaten Australia 5-0. He's taken Sri Lanka, you know, out the way.
So why change a winning formula? I think they're doing, well enough for them to keep him in his position. The team is going forward.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your analysis and your views. I hope to bring you back again when we start talking about T20 and ODI, see what the Proteas are going to do against Sri Lanka.
Absolutely. Always great to be here.
There you have it. Dumisama Karima, former BizHub Lions assistant coach, and not Titans, BizHub Lions it is, chatting to us about all the news that came out yesterday in cricket. Now we're moving on to other sporting stories with top seed and defending champion Angelique Kerber of Germany is through to the third round of the Australian Open tennis tournament. This in Melbourne. Kerber beat compatriot Carina Witthöft in a second successive three-set of the tournament. There were also wins for Switzerland's former champions Stanislav Wawrinka and Roger Federer.
After coming through a tough opening match, Kerber braced herself for another challenging clash. But she bagged the first set 6-2 in just half an hour as Witthöft's unforced error count rose to 25.
Well, she's got the first set here in round 2 and in the end quite comfortably.
A frustrated Kerber, however, struggled in the next set, while Witthöft's game improved significantly. She eventually clinched it in the tiebreak. Witthöft then broke the Kerber serve in the first game of the decider and seemed on track for a huge upset. But Kerber dug deep, broke her opponent's serve twice and finally won at 6-2 to advance to the third round. Fourth seed Wawrinka, meanwhile, enjoyed an easier outing against American Steve Johnson. The 2014 champion was in fine form as he secured a straight sets win in an hour and 50 minutes.
I think today I was feeling the ball better. From the beginning I was really focused, made a lot of good points, making play a lot, being aggressive. Was a great match.
Four-time champion Federer had a tough encounter against 20-year-old American Noah Rubin. The 17th seed's experience, however, pulled him through. Federer won the clash in straight sets and will face Czech 10th seed Thomas Berdych in the next round.
Gave him a good run for his money. But in the end, it's Federer who prevails in straight sets.
And fifth seed Kei Nishikori of Japan beat Frenchman Jeremy Chardy in just over 2 hours. Nishikori recorded a straightforward 6-3, 6-4, 6-3 victory. Liesl Zankel, SABC News.
Now from Melbourne now to Gabon, where the other tournament that's on the news is taking place. The Black Stars of Ghana got their 2017 Africa Cup of Nations off to a winning start with a 1-0 win over Uganda to top Group D. Andre Ayew's spot kick in the first half proved to be the difference between the two teams.
The contest, Ghana began to assert their dominance, threatening Uganda's goal post on numerous occasions. The Black Stars continued to look menacing. Andre Ayew's attempt, comfortably collected by Dennis Onyango on the stroke of the half-hour mark. However, Ghana were soon rewarded for their positive play, referee pointing to the spot kick after Asamoah Gyan was brought down in the penalty box. Andre Ayew had no problems converting the spot kick to put Ghana ahead 15 minutes before the interval. Despite Uganda's best efforts to restore parity, after referee's final whistle, the scoreboard read 1-0 in favor of Ghana. Joseph Muhali, SABC News.
Now that was the first match. In the second match, Mali and Egypt played out to a goalless draw in their opening match at the Africa Cup of Nations. The Malians might have won an early penalty when Musa Marega was bundled over by Ali Gabr in the box, but South African referee Daniel Bennett waved play on. The Egyptians were forced into an early change when goalkeeper Ahmed Eshenawi was forced off with a hamstring problem. He was replaced by the 44-year-old Essam Haldari. A three-time winner of the tournament, he became the competition's oldest player. After this particular replacement, Egypt could have opened the scoring from a header, but they were denied. Mahmoud Abdel Monem's cross from the left was met by a flying header from Marwan Mohsen, but Mali's goalkeeper Omar Sissoko produced a superb reaction to turn the ball over. Goalless, that's how it ended at Port-Gentil in Gabon. Now, a defining thing about this particular AFCON has been the lack of goals as well as the number of draws. Jody Hendricks, SABC Sports analyst, joins me to talk about this. Jody, what is going on out in Gabon?
After a lot of excitement, Kendall, and I must say a couple of first-round matches, really disappointed that we're not seeing goals. I counted, I think, 12 games, of which 4 came in one game. So really, you know, the strikers are a bit disappointing, but I think in the past we spoke about it being a South African problem or Bafana problem, but it seems to be an African problem now with the teams not getting results and scoring goals.
You know, you talk about it being a Bafana problem maybe. This is the showpiece of African football. This is the creme de la creme of what Africa has to offer. And surely somewhere along the line we can have more matches similar to the Zimbabwe-Algeria thriller that we saw over the weekend.
Yeah, the 2-2 draw there, and I think we've got some of the best players in the world. You mentioned Ayew in your package now. We've got Maharaj from Algeria. So, you know, we've got some quality players playing in the best leagues in the world. But unfortunately, when it comes to national team duty, they seem to be disappointing, although I think Maharaj had a good game against them.
What I have heard from some pundits as well is that in the first round, a lot of the teams are going to be a little more cagey than normal. They're feeling each other out. They've got maybe stage fright, big stage. The Cranes, for example, their coach this morning was saying, look, it was a big stage. 38 years had been in the making since they last lost in the final to Ghana. And that grudge match that we were all hoping to see really was totally underwhelming. Yeah. It fizzled out to nothing.
Yeah, a lot of the teams also didn't have a lot of time together to prepare. So, you know, playing together as a team could be one of the factors, and it's going to take them a game or two, but you'd expect, you know, playing for your national team, the players should be familiar with each other, so we should see a more free-flowing game, you know, more goal-scoring opportunities, because it's one thing, you know, not to score goals, but, you know, to create the opportunities is also something that I think the teams need to look at. But all in all, I think a bit disappointed, but hopefully, you know, the tournament is still a couple of weeks on, and hopefully as it progresses, we'll see more goals and results.
Jody, are there any 2 or 3 teams that you'd say we should be looking out for, that once they click, they're going to be the horses to beat?
Definitely the defending champions, Ivory Coast. I think you can never write them off. Ghana is going to be a surprise package this year. They last won the tournament in 1982, but I think Avram Grant, you know, they grinded out a win last night. They could be a team to beat and hopefully put the bogey or the choking tag as they've become known. And then also I think Algeria. A lot of good individual players, Kendall. I'm a bit worried about them as a unit and playing together as a team. But once they start clicking, I think it's going to be very difficult to beat. So those are the 3 teams that I think we should watch out for at AFCON 2017.
Jody Hendricks, thank you so much for coming through. Lots to chat about over the next couple of weeks. And appreciate your time and analysis.
Always good being here, Kendall. Thank you.
There you have it, Jody Hendricks, SABC sports commentator as well as analyst, talking to us about this lack of goals as well as all of these draws that we keep getting. Now, after me, I've got our meteorologist standing by. In fact, I want to ask you a quick question. Now, we've got the first T20 against Sri Lanka coming up over the weekend on Friday. What's it looking like weather-wise?
The weather is looking pretty good. In fact, we're expecting some sunny conditions. A slight breeze in the morning, but that's because temperatures are starting off to dip in the evenings, but then they come back during the day. So it is going to get a little bit warmer. I think it's going to be a fine weekend coming up.
Now, fantastic. Well, we're going to leave it right there. In fact, I'm going to be done with the sports. I'm going to hand right back to you. Jody, thanks very much. And thanks to Dumis for having joined us. And now for you, Tsetse.
Hi there, welcome from the weather desk. Let's take a look at what you can expect just over the next couple of days. Looks like it's going to be quite hot for the Western Cape province and the Northern Cape, and also possibility of veld fires there. I'll show you in just a moment. Let's start off. First thing first, rainfall. We're seeing a bit of it towards the northeastern part of South Africa, of Southern Africa, in fact, just towards Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and then spreading further into the central part of Zambia. Clear conditions for South Africa going all the way towards the coastal parts. A little bit of showers are expected along the interior of the west, especially for all those who are going to be in the Northern Cape province. By Thursday, it will move away, going all the way towards the northern parts, becoming much stronger for northern Zambia as well as over the interior of Mozambique. Madagascar should also see a bit of isolated showers. In South Africa, just cloudy weather for the next 2 days. Nothing much in terms of rainfall, except maybe if you're going to be in KwaZulu-Natal. South African Weather Service just warns of possibilities of gale force winds along the coast, and then there's red shade here indicating possibilities of veld fires because of high temperatures and also dry weather towards the Northern Cape and over much of the Western Cape province. So please be on the lookout for those. There are your temperatures, 33 for Sutherland. There's about 40 towards places such as Vredendal and Clare and William at about 41 degrees. Springbok is at 35, Upington at 30. Some partly cloudy skies towards the northeast, starting from Pretoria with a maximum of 29 to 28 for Polokwane. and you'll see Mozambique expecting a good chance of rainfall. In fact, they're bordering on downpours along those parts. Majanga temperatures at 31, 27 for Antananarivo. Nothing changes much for Zimbabwe. Just cooler temperatures for now. Bulawayo at 18, 20 for Harare. Very hot weather for Windhoek at 31. In fact, it's been about those lower 30s for the last couple of days, so nothing has really changed there. And for all those that are in Libreville, 29 is your maximum there. In Gabon, that's basically where African Cup of Nations is taking place for the next couple of weeks. Temperatures are going to be into the upper 20s. And just here along the central parts of Africa, temperatures hardly change here. They stay quite constant for a long time. It's just the type of season, the wet season or the dry season, where you would notice a big change. Kinshasa is at 33 degrees. It's quite rainy there, and we're expecting even rainy weather towards places such as the northern part of the DRC. But do expect clear skies right across the Sahel, and much of a change towards Morocco. Not much of a change rather towards Morocco. A bit of clouds coming up along those parts. Temperature-wise for Middle East, 18 for Damascus, Baghdad at around 12 degrees. And do expect a bit of a hot day for places such as N'Djamena, and for all those are going to be in Niamey, 38 and 39 respectively. That's your maximums along those parts. This is where I leave it for the weather, but do stay tuned. There'll be more throughout the day.
When cell phones get cut off, people say Mdluli was listening. Who are you?
We have to approach Dennis Breitenbach, who was the prosecutor by then.
The DA Parliamentary?
That's correct. The one who's making halabaloo about me.
There are allegations here that you abused the slush fund. What do you say to that?
We don't have slush fund. I don't know about slush fund.
I respect the fact that you cannot talk a lot about the Secret Service and all that. I guess that's the norm internationally.
Yeah.
But how do we know that you, Richard Mdluli, are not abusing the funds of the state? You are counted amongst the president's men. Are you?
That is rubbish.
Also the matter of General Boysen in KZN. He's not speaking very well of you.
No, that one is talking rubbish.
You are perceived to be very powerful, General, and you know, people who don't agree with you seem to pay the price. What is happening with the Oparamkhibe case?
No, I'm surprised because, as I've said, I'm a person of people.
R1.4 billion was raised to build the institution. Additional funding came from ordinary South Africans.
It's been heartwarming to have seen the project from 2009 when the first sorting happened to see it today being completed. Indeed, this is going to be our benchmark going forward. It's just been incredible.
Jammeh has said in the past that only Allah can remove him from office, and once claimed he would rule the tiny riverside West African nation for 1 billion years.
We are going to win this election.
Even if we avoid a downgrade, we're still hovering very dangerously close to junk, and that'll of course affect markets next year.
Our markets are actually already punishing us for a downgrade that may or may not come.
Woods made a blistering start but eventually slumped to a 1 over par 73 and is 9 shots behind the leader and his compatriot JB Holmes.
You know, I just made some really, if you look at it, some really silly mistakes. Mistakes I don't normally make, but I hadn't played in a while, and you know, unfortunately I made those mistakes. I can clean that up.
written, cut under the lid, a state of capital report written in a rush, released totally clumsily, in my view. And that what raises the questions, because there is a report on that statement of the Absa Bank. Would like to see it.
We had concluded a provisional report. It was really just an administrative error that prevented me from signing that report. Another question I'm not going to answer is the alleged current report the same as my history? Will just tell the truth about what I concluded and what is now on the table.
Well, there you have it, and that's our focus on today. Of course, we have a poll for you that we're asking you that question. Of course, here's it on the back of your screen. Kendall, we're asking the question, should Absa pay back the apartheid bailout money?
85% of the 168 vote say yes, they should, whereas 15% say no. I wonder which 15% it is that's saying that.
Now that is the question right there, Kendall. 168 votes. You can join in the conversation. You can also send us a tweet. If there are any tweets on that, you can let us know on the Twitter handle, and we'll read them as we continue. But also, there's a question that we're focusing on today. We're asking you the question, why does the gap between the rich and the poor continue to widen? This is on the back of that report. So let's take a look at what people have to say about this, Kendall.
Yeah, we do have some comments here. Extrovert says, and I imagine the difference that money could do to our economy.
Yes, that's from Extrovert. This one coming from Mbongeseni says, capitalism and corruption are the causes of the widening gap between the rich and the poor in South Africa.
I like how he's used the word gape.
Yep.
Right. Jawulani Kumalo, a white man once said, they are covered for at least the next 100 years.
Yeah, that's from Jabulani. This one from Extrovert again says, yes, the reasons as a country why we are in debt with the World Bank is due to such money, which is
maybe overdue.
Overdue,
maybe
probably.
overdue.
Yeah.
All right, and now one last one, I believe Lawrence Bailey says doing more to cut down on unemployment will help close that gap.
Now, as you know, that report by Oxfam shows that just 8 men in the world, yeah, just 8, not 80 or 800, 8 men in the world owe the same wealth as 50% of the world's poorest in the global context. That's what we want to know from you. Let us know what's on your mind. We'll read some more of those comments a little bit later, but right now let's take a look at your news headlines. Parliament's ad hoc committee probing the SABC's affairs recommends that the appointment of the new GCEO, COO and the company secretary at the public broadcaster should be finalised as soon as possible. The public protector, Busisiwe Mkabane, has laid criminal charges over the leaking of a preliminary report on an apartheid-era bailout. And over 50 people have been killed when a Nigerian Air Force jet reportedly attacked a refugee camp accidentally in the northeast of the country. Now, those are all your headlines. Before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening in the final hour in the sports.
100%, Elvis, thank you very much. Quite a lot going on now. We've got AFCON out in Gabon, also in Australia. We've got the Australian Open. So here we go. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
I've made myself unavailable for the New Zealand Test Series. I will be there for the ODIs for the rest of the year. And definitely not retiring out of Test cricket, that's for sure, because I still have a plan of coming back at some stage.
AB de Villiers creates a conundrum for Cricket South Africa as he announces that he's not going to be making himself available for selection for the upcoming test.
Against the best goalkeeper in Africa, he beats him.
The Black Stars of Ghana get their AFCON campaign off to a winning start, edging Uganda's Cranes by a single penalty goal. All aboard the Fed Express as Roger Federer snuffles a late fight back by American Ruben Meyer to advance to the third round.
Gave him a good run for his money.
Now, all this and more I've got for you later on the Sports Bulletin. I also have a chat that Bruce Davidson had with regards to the Australian Open. I'll be bringing that to you at 11:35. For now, it is back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. The fourth industrial revolution remains a highly topical issue at the World Economic Forum. It was the main theme last year. It speaks to the new digital economy and fast-paced technology and developments in technology, which are creating advancements in manufacturing, healthcare and other sectors. But also come with the reality of people losing their jobs as robots or machines take over traditional jobs.
Digitalization now underpins modern economies, and the fear of computers and machines taking over jobs traditionally performed by humans is very real. It's happening in manufacturing, in agriculture, the finance sector and beyond. It's a global problem, and leaders are discussing how to deal with its opportunities and challenges, and education will have to play a big role.
The barriers to entry are higher. So you now need to have some access to higher education. You now need to have some knowledge of these technologies. You now need to be able to position yourself in that way. So I think our challenges in the future are going to be to bring more and more people into this kind of education, into this kind of awareness of the skills development needs of the future.
Labour unions say workers will have to adapt through ongoing education. But South Africa has the additional crisis of young people now deemed as unemployable. But there may be a glimmer of hope.
We have already started with a program where business and government and labour look to take those people that we normally refer to that are not in employment, that are not in education, that are not in training. So we want to create a new category where we call it on-the-job training. Because we want to take about 350,000 in the first year and put them in jobs for a year at least, so that they can get that necessary workplace training and experience.
Business say it's inevitable that they'll have to reskill their employees as the disruptive forces of digitalization take hold.
That has impacts both on our customers, and from a customer point of view should create a seamless, faster customer environment, so there are lots of positives in that direction. But from a staff point of view, it really requires us to reskill our staff to make sure that they have skills that are relevant in the fourth industrial revolution.
Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa echoed the need for South Africa to be innovative in finding solutions for its problems, particularly the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty and inequality. The tripartite government, business and labour solution to create 1 million learnerships over the next 3 years should certainly serve as a good start. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Davos, Switzerland.
Now, as you know, it's day 2 of the 2017 World Economic Forum that's taking place in Davos in Switzerland. Delegates have welcomed the Chinese President Xi Jinping's opening remarks, which focused on many issues affecting different parts of the world, including globalization. Xi Jinping's presence at the meeting comes amid rising tensions between Beijing and US President-elect Donald Trump, who will be inaugurated on Friday, the final day of the Davos meeting, by the way. The Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, says that Xi Jinping's speech is relevant to the current precarious global climate. Now, to get us the latest, our SABC economics reporter Nompumelelo Siziba is attending the meeting and joined us now from Switzerland. A very good morning to you, Nompu. And can you first just paint us a picture of what is the mood like there in Davos and what is different this year? Because I do believe you have a guest. Good morning.
Good morning, Elvis. Yes, thanks very much. Well, the temperatures are extremely cold. We're experiencing minus 20 degrees at the moment, so that's not so great. But the actual mood among delegates here is a positive one. People to come up with solutions together. So the mood is positive, and as you mentioned, the Chinese president speaking yesterday, while many people have been talking about globalization in negative terms, he's been saying that globalization is actually a good thing, and rather than seeking to move away from each other and be a global village, we should actually the global community to find solutions together and work together. implicit in his message was really the threats that US President-elect has been making around what he's going to be doing when he takes office on Friday in terms of relations with China, levying higher import tariffs on countries like China, which many countries have accused of dumping a lot of various different products in their markets, making their particular exporters and manufacturers uncompetitive. So that was his message, and our Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, said it was a positive message. Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan lamented the fact that, or what he sees as a situation where the big countries look after themselves and the smaller countries, your middle income countries and further down, have to sort of suffer on their own. He lamented that there isn't that global cohesive kind of program of action that we saw post the global financial crisis that was there, when monetary policy and fiscal policy agents all worked together to try and deal with the crisis that was then. And he was saying that China will have to take a more dominant role on the global stage and actually represent emerging markets a lot more because of the void that's currently there and the uncertainty that's currently there, given that we don't really know what a Donald Trump presidency holds for the globe.
Now, the opening of the 27 Davos looked interestingly at the Chinese president that set the tone for the coming days on globalization. What was different about his speech, and did he touch on that very, very sensitive topic, China-US relations?
Well, look, what's different about his speech is the fact that there's no Chinese president who's ever made a speech at this forum before. So it was very significant. He's the first one to do so. And he comes at a time when there was no real kind of US leadership force here. Yes, Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden is here, but he's going out the door in a matter of days. So he can't exactly really say that this is our position, that's our position, because there's going to be a new man on the block come Friday. Basically, that was very significant, and the South African government was very excited about what he had to say, and other delegates from around the world were excited. They feel that China is going to be a responsible leader. They're making huge investments in climate change and so on. They announced earlier in the year that they're going to spend something like $360 billion on the matter over the next 3 years or so. I mean, you can't even fathom what that kind of money means. People seem to have received China's messages very well, but we know that there's also a lot of skepticism about China. But more, I'd like to focus more locally on what's happening in the sense that obviously South Africa is here to try and market itself as a country. The DP, the Deputy President, is here with Team South Africa, top CEOs of the country, civil society and labour, to market the country and say, look, we're open for business, we're doing great things, this is our policy. He assured us that this year is going to be a better year in terms of policy certainty. People are still worried about issues like mining. The mining bill, which is still sitting somewhere and hasn't been signed, there's no clarity there, the FICA bill and so on and so forth. But one of the things that obviously South Africa has a lot in its favour is it's beautiful. It's a beautiful country and it's got so much prospects in terms of tourism and so on and so forth. And we will be holding the World Economic Forum on Africa in May this year, where we're going to be able to showcase the country. And differently this year, we're going to be holding it in Durban. It's usually held in Cape Town, and with me I've got Sihle Zikalala. He's the MEC for Economic Development and Tourism and other portfolios, which I won't care to mention. But anyway, he's here, and I'm going to just get a sense from him as to what we can expect from Durban. Thanks very much for joining us, sir. We're going to be having WEF in Durban come May this year. You're here right now. What lessons are you trying to draw from this session here?
We're here to draw lessons on how the World Economic Forum functions. But what is important for us is to ensure that we get ready and prepare for the World Economic Forum Africa, which will be on the 3rd to the 5th of May this year. We can say from our observations and interaction with number of business people who are here, we can say with certainty that it is going to be a huge success. But also what is important is that we are part of South Africa, which is marketing, a team of South Africa which is marketing South Africa, and we are part of marketing KwaZulu-Natal, because as KwaZulu-Natal, we are a diverse economy, starting from tourism, which is important, but also areas of manufacturing, which we are trying to activate in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. It's known we've got the special economic zones, Dube Trade Port, and the Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone, which comes with some incentives to those who invest in those areas. So our drive is yielding positive results because we've been able to attract number of investment to those areas. In Dube Trade Port alone, phase 1 and phase 2 is fully occupied now, with, among others, international companies coming to locate their operations in Durban. So that's what we'll want to see and grow the economy of the province, which will obviously contribute to growing the economy of the country.
Now, we know that Durban is a huge hub for conferences, and you get a lot of traffic, and you get a lot of people who come not only for business, but they also accompany it with pleasure. What then are you hoping to try and achieve from a tourism perspective in KZN, and what are you going to be doing to ensure that you maximize the benefit of this particular conference?
Business event is one of the key pillars of our tourism industry as KwaZulu-Natal. So as we are moving toward the World Economic Forum Africa, we are going to be releasing information and packages that we offer on tourism. Because what is known is that those people, when they come for business events, they don't only go for conferences. Some comes with their families, some will extend their stay by a week or few days. So it is important for us that as early as now, we begin to release information we offer. It will not be of any use for us to come at a later stage because people would have booked and make arrangement. So we are going to move now, ensure that we promote and ensure that we market KwaZulu-Natal, especially what we offer in terms of tourism.
And MEC, just more broadly, not necessarily speaking specifically about KZN, what do you hope South Africa Inc. will get from this particular meeting at the World Economic Forum?
Well, I think South Africa, from the World Economic Forum, it is going to benefit a lot from the interaction with number of investors. I think the Deputy President yesterday on the session Powering Africa made quite a clear input on what we are doing as South Africa. And that session on its own, open and interaction, it was a platform for interaction with various businesses, business people from other countries. This evening, the team South Africa will also meet with a number of global business people who are positive about South Africa. So what is quite important is for South Africa to position itself, ensure that those people who are interested are supported in their endeavors to invest in the country.
Okay, well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, sir. Well, that was MEC Sihle Zikalala for KZN for economic development. And basically, he's very positive. All the South African delegates that we've spoken to here are very positive about the benefits that will accrue from being here and trying to market the South African economy. There is an expectation that the South African economy will grow at a better rate than it did last year. The expectation was that last year it grew by about 0.5%, and that this year it will grow by another by 1%. And obviously, by speaking to people here, they're hoping that it will translate into concrete investments at home, which should mean economic growth and hopefully job creation. All right, it's back to you, Elvis.
Nampo, before you come back to me, just what can we expect today to happen there in Davos?
Okay, yes. Well, look, the underpinning theme is that of responsive and responsible leadership, and that covers a manner of subjects. But today, people are going to be talking around issues of cyber attacks. You know, cybercrime is a real phenomenon that companies and governments are faced with. So they're going to be people are going to be talking about those issues. And then a lot of focus is on achieving the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations. They're going to be talking about human health and how strides can be made to improve human health. There are many people who don't have the kind of health that you and I enjoy. So how can you do that in an affordable manner where people have easy access to healthcare and so on and so forth? The fourth industrial revolution is a massive topic because, as the insert that we saw before talks about, there is a real potential that machines and computers are now going to be taking over the jobs that have been previously done by human beings. How do you ensure that people catch up with technology and are employable in this age where technology is forever changing and just keeping pace with that? So education is very important. And in the South African context, where we've struggled even just to manage with orthodox education, it's going to be critical for policymakers to make the right decisions now so that we accelerate the type of education that youngsters get now, and they already get exposed to a digital type of learning. So by the time they finish school, it's automatic. They know that they've got to deal with automation. Elvis.
Nompo, thank you so much for your time and that update that you brought for us there. That was our SABC economics reporter, Nompo Molelo Siziba from Switzerland in Davos. Coming back home now, Parliament's ad hoc committee probing the SABC's affairs says that the appointment of a new GCEO as well as a COO and company secretary at the public broadcaster should be finalised as soon as possible. Now, this is one of the recommendations in the committee's working document, which the SABC is in possession of. The committee is due to meet over the next 2 days to finalise its report. The report further recommends that political interference at the SABC must be condemned, attended to and exposed immediately to the SABC's accounting authority and to Parliament. The document also says the Communications Committee should play a greater oversight role over the SABC to ensure the separation of powers between the SABC and the Minister. It further says that the Communications Committee's oversight role should ensure that the shareholders is not involved in the day-to-day operations of the SABC. Meanwhile, the Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, has laid criminal charges over the leaking of a preliminary report on Apartheid-era bank bailout. That report recommends that ABSA pay back 2.25 billion rand. Now, investigation conducted in 1997 by a UK-based asset recovery agency, CIEX, apparently suggested to the Reserve Bank that it should recover money given to Bancorp. According to the report, the Reserve Bank gave a financial bailout to Bancorp under apartheid. ABSA is the bank that took over Bancorp. A subsequent investigation by the Davos panel of experts found that ABSA's shareholders did not derive any undue benefit from the Reserve Bank's intervention. As such, no claim of restitution could be pursued against ABSA.
One weekly newspaper last week published contents of a leaked Public Protector report. And so the Public Protector today opened a criminal case at the Brooklyn police station for the police to look into this whole matter.
What is the leak about? Which report is it related to?
This is a report into, or the report following an investigation into allegations that the South African government, failed to act on the so-called CIEX report, as well as to recover public funds.
Is it the same money that Andile and his company or group were fighting about the Public Protector?
Yes, it is related to the matter that the BLF has been raising with the Public Protector.
A Nigerian Air Force fighter jet on a mission against Boko Haram extremists mistakenly bombed a refugee camp on Tuesday, killing more than 100 refugees and 8 workers and wounding 200 other people. Military Commander Major General Lucky Irabor confirmed an accidental bombardment in the northeastern town of Ran, near the border with Cameroon. Major Irabor says that some civilians were also killed. It was believed to be the first time Nigeria's military has acknowledged making such a mistake in a region where the villagers have in the past reported civilian casualties in the near-daily bombings targeting the extremist.
These were the victims in the airstrike that was supposed to hit Boko Haram militants. Instead, the Nigerian Air Force strike hit a refugee camp in Ran, killing 50 people and injuring 120 others. Regional military commander General Lucky Irabor said they received reports of Boko Haram gathering in the area.
We got the coordinates, and I directed that the air should go to address the problem.
The strike came amid an offensive against Boko Haram over the last few weeks, and Irabor said it was a damaging mistake.
These are results of the fog of war. It's unfortunate. That's the reason why this war must come to an end.
6 Nigerian Red Cross members were also among the dead.
Well, for more on the story, on Skype we are joined by James Kambaki, the head of Field Human Resources at Doctors Without Borders, or MSF. A very good morning to you and welcome. James, let's just start off with this particular question. Did any of your staff at MSF perished in that attack?
At the moment, we are not able to confirm if we have any of our staff who have been killed or injured. We are still evaluating the situation.
Do you know if there was any South Africans or doctors or staff in the camps during the bombings?
At the moment, we are not able to substantiate or to confirm anything because we are still evaluating the situation.
How do you view this attack that was indicated by Major Irabor as a mistake?
It's regrettable because we actually see it as a blunt disrespect of civilian space because such a huge mistake like that in a camp or where the military knew that there's staff and humanitarian crisis going on that actually facilitated this is really regrettable. And condemn that this is not really a mistake.
Are you aware as MSF of exactly what happened?
We are not yet sure what happened. I think the best placed people to answer that will be the military of Nigeria.
You will keep us updated of what is happening there, but are you aware perhaps of any of the latest death toll that was released by government?
Not yet. We don't have those figures at the moment.
And have you been in contact with the Nigerian government regarding the deadly accident or not?
Our teams there are working hard at the moment to really also call for support of those who are injured to be evacuated as quickly and as urgently as possible, because that is the immediate thing that needs to happen, that we try as much as possible to treat those who need to be treated at the moment. You know that this area was where there was one of the biggest nutrition crisis that happened since 2015, and we are actually there to intervene. There was quite a number of, we have about 10 hospitals in Borno State, and we work in 6 different towns, and even visit other 5 towns. So we have huge intervention in Borno State, and for such things to happen, I think it's just unfortunate.
James, I would like to thank you so much for that report. That was James Kambaki. He is talking to us about the bombings that happened in Nigerian Borno State and, of course, representing MSF, or Doctors Without Borders. We'll take a short break and we'll be back right after that.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
Now, of course, remember this morning we are asking you that question. They're going to put it on your screen right now, in terms of the widening gap between the rich and the poor in the world. And that's the question we posed to you this morning. Why does this gap between the rich and the poor continue to widen? You can let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. But new estimates revealed by Oxfam South Africa says that in the inequality report titled "An Economy for the 99% show that just 8 men own the same wealth as the poorest half of the world. That report has been released to coincide with the 47th World Economic Forum annual meeting that's taking place currently in Davos, in Klosters, Switzerland. Now, to tell us more, we're joined here in studio by Ronald Weso. He's the Senior Research and Policy Manager at Oxfam SA. A very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, it's shocking statistics. 8 people own so much money, and the rest of the world, or half of the world's population, don't own anything. Tell us about that. How did you compile this report and how did you get the figures?
Well, the data is drawn from a variety of sources. It's mainly national census data, so the equivalent of Stats South Africa in the global countries, around the globe. Also tax data, also data from the various stock exchanges of the world. So yes, I was here last year, and we talked about 64 people owning or controlling that level of wealth. New data has come along, and the situation is even worse than we thought it was, especially from India and China, the new data. Shockingly, only 8 people.
Only 8 people. Now, coming to South Africa, 3 billionaires have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 50% of South Africa. So that information is critical for people to understand that. Explain to me the 50 bottom half of the population. What are we talking about? We have a 54 million count of people in South Africa.
That's correct. That's what it means. It means that a good 26, 27 million of us control and have access to what only 3 people have control over. It is a situation of unimaginable inequality. And you know, it's interesting, these questions about the data, because that level of wealth confers a lot of power, including the power to hide wealth. So no data set is perfect and gives ultimate absolute answers. But we do know if there's some underreporting, it's probably that the situation is even worse than we can see from the data sets that we are using.
From Oxfam's perspective, we're asking that question to our viewers, but is there a sense from you that that gap, that wealth gap, is widening between the rich and the poor?
It is widening, and it's widening at an alarming rate. You see, what we are trying to draw attention to is that this is no longer a situation that most of us refer to when we say, but look, the rich has always got richer, or the poor will always be among us. It is a very specific thing that has happened through the last 40 years, and it's driven by a specific ideology called neoliberalism that we name in the report, that has underpinned policy making. So it's the same things that are happening that are hurting the poor and the working class, like privatization, outsourcing. It's the deregulation and liberalization of financial markets and everything else, really, that has allowed this kind of concentration of wealth.
How do we rectify that? And what is the role of corporations and especially governments in order to make sure that we perhaps reach that equilibrium?
Yeah, it is the measures that we advocate for in the report is really, we claim no special insight or even originality. We've named it the human economy to draw attention to the fact that this is actually about real human beings. But it is measures that have been proven, that's worked before, that has been rolled back. Progressive taxation, you have to tax these wealthy elites at a level that allows governments to access the necessary resources to finance things like free services, like education, health. You have to protect your own markets and your workforce. You have to protect workers' rights. It is a set of policies, you see, that we don't need to invent or reinvent. We have to adapt them to new conditions, but it's not something, it's like what has happened was that these things were reversed in most parts of the world. So it is clear the starting point is to put them in place again.
So capitalism is not the answer, but the report also suggests creating a human economy to cater for the 99%. How do you think that will be achieved?
Well, once again, if we look at the places and times where these sets of policies worked, where governments put in place progressive tax regimes, subsidized and accessible services, protected workers, many people look at the state and think that because the state was doing those things, that's where the solution must come from. It is only part of the solution. All of these policies were underpinned by mobilization and organization from below. Workers' movements, feminist movements, anti-colonial movements have mobilized millions and millions of people, and governments were basically forced to put in place the policies that serve the people on the ground. And that is the route we'll have to go again.
Now, this is a shocking report. Will this be presented to the world leaders at Davos this week?
Definitely. Oxfam works outside the World Economic Forum and inside. So they will be, for the last, since 2014 at least, this issue, as a result of the efforts of Oxfam and others, have really made an impact and dominated discussion. So definitely.
Now, Mr. Wezo, your expectations from that meeting?
Well, remember, the World Economic Forum is a talk shop. It's not an official decision-making forum. It's a very important talk shop because this is where the wealthy elites come together and push and kind of enroll governments and guide governments in ways that they want to. So our expectation is, out of this is, what we want to happen is when politicians and leaders come back, that we will see some real policy changes. But as I said, that will depend on all of us. If we can mobilize from below the necessary pressure, then it will happen.
I just want to go back briefly to the human economy, where you say 99% will benefit. Is there examples of countries that implemented that way it actually works?
Well, there's many examples. I mean, like I said, the human economy is basically if we must characterize it, it's a kind of welfare state social democracy approach, and it's worked everywhere where it was tried, really. It's worked in Europe for a long time. It's worked in Africa for a brief time, post-independence, when a lot of our governments implemented similar policies. But of course, then we had reversals where many of our leaders were overthrown and assassinated and so on. It's worked in Latin America, like they are bucking the trends. Inequality has been rising everywhere, but at least over the last 10, 15 years in Latin America, it has been dropping in some countries, precisely where these types of policies have been implemented.
Mr. Wezo, I thank you so much for your time and joining us and trying to explain this to us, and I hope you have a better sense of what that actually means. You are much poorer. That gap is widening between you and the rest of the rich, which is only 8 men in the world. Right now, that's the end of our news program. Kendall Makamata is standing by with your sports news.
Thank you very much, Elvis. A riveting discussion you just had there with Oxfam. Now, the Black Stars of Ghana got their 2017 Africa Cup of Nations off to a winning start. Now, with a 1-0 win over Uganda to top Group D. Andre Ayew's spot kick in the first half proved to be the difference between the two teams. In the second match of the day and the last of the first round, Mali and Egypt played out to a goalless draw in their opening match at the Africa Cup of Nations. Now, really, it was the Malians who might have won an early penalty. This one, Musa Marega, was bundled over by Ali Gabr in the box, but South African referee Daniel Bennett waved play on. And the Egyptians were forced into an early change when goalkeeper Ahmed El Shinawi was forced off with a hamstring problem. He was replaced by the 44-year-old Issam El Hadri, a three-time winner of the tournament who became the competition's oldest player at 44 years and 2 days. Egypt could have opened the scoring from a header, but were denied. Mahmoud Abdel Monem's cross from the left was met by a flying header from Marwan Mohsen, but Mali's goalkeeper Omar Sissoko produced a superb reaction to turn the ball over. Goalless, that's how it ended in Port-Gentil in Gabon. Now, top seed and defending champion Angelique Kerber of Germany is through to the third round of the Australian Open tennis tournament in Melbourne. Kerber beat compatriot Karina Witthoeft in a second successive three-setter of the tournament. There were also wins for Switzerland's former champions Stanislav Wawrinka and Roger Federer.
After coming through a tough opening match, Kerber braced herself for another challenging clash. But she bagged the first set 6-2 in just half an hour as Witthoeft's unforced error count rose to 25.
Well, she's got the first set here in round 2 and in the end quite comfortably.
A frustrated Kerber, however, struggled in the next set, while Witthoeft's game improved significantly. She eventually clinched it in the tiebreak. Witthoeft then broke the Kerber serve in the first game of the decider and seemed on track for a huge upset. But Kerber dug deep, broke her opponent's serve twice and finally won at 6-2 to advance to the third round. Fourth seed Wawrinka, meanwhile, enjoyed an easier outing against American Steve Johnson. The 2014 champion was in fine form as he secured a straight sets win in an hour and 50 minutes.
I think today I was feeling the ball better. From the beginning I was really focused, made a lot of good points, making play a lot, being aggressive. Was a great match.
Four-time champion Federer had a tough encounter against 20-year-old American Noah Rubin. The 17th seed's experience, however, pulled him through. Federer won the clash in straight sets and will face Czech 10th seed Thomas Berdych in the next round.
Gave him a good run for his money. But in the end, it's Federer who prevails in straight sets.
And fifth seed Kei Nishikori of Japan beat Frenchman Jeremy Chardy in just over 2 hours. Nishikori recorded a straightforward 6-3, 6-4, 6-3 victory. Liesl Zankel, SABC News.
A great report there by Liesl. Now, talking Australian Open, tennis analyst and promoter Bruce Davidson stopped by last night to chat to Simon Burke about the tennis season opening Grand Slam. Simon started by asking him who the focus should be on in the men's draw.
I think it's Andy Murray. He hasn't won an Australian Open. He's showed incredible form going into the end of last year where he took the #1 spot from Djokovic. And he looks super composed. He had a tough opening match where he had 2 shaky first sets, but he came through that in fine form. He's very fit, and with that Australian heat and the humidity, I think the fittest players are going to come through, and he is super fit, and giving him the title.
Right. Well, I mean, he had a stellar 2016. He seemed to get a newfound mental strength. Where did that come about? Was it the birth of his child? Was a maturity that developed?
I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I do think that the personal life has got a lot to do with it. And Kim, you know, his wife and him have come into a nice space together, because I think that's very important. Now, we must remember Djokovic had the reverse. Right. He had big problems with his wife and with the child, and the circumstances which put him in a bit of a very interesting spot. But also I think that Jamie Delgado, the new coach with Andy Murray, has also brought about a complete new look to Andy's game, and I think that's very important. When you're surrounded by good people, you tend to just produce a little bit more.
Right, and so then Novak Djokovic, obviously he was expecting this would be his time now, get rid of Federer, Nadal. The next, and did he anticipate the arrival of Andy Murray quite like perhaps the Brits did?
I think he did, but I don't think he expected what happened last year. And that, what I told you, only really broke late last year about the personal issues. And I know that those personal issues can be very, very detrimental to your climbing or continued climb as a career. We saw it with Nadal when his parents got divorced. He went through a very big slump. So yeah, I think that that wasn't expected, but I never write of Djokovic. He's just such a class act.
Well, I mean, we're used to having two dominant personality, alpha males ruling the roost in the men's game. It seems like it's Murray and Djokovic now. But Wawrinka's always there and thereabouts. Is there anyone else we can talk about? And does Wawrinka have what it takes for a sustained push?
Well, I saw Keiichi Nishikori, the Japanese sensation, and Stan, both really struggled in their first rounds. They both had 5-setters. They were on court for a long time. That's going to be very taxing for them for the next 2 weeks, because you don't want to really have tough matches in your opening rounds. But the men's game is very tough at the moment. Right. Those top 10 players can really play ball. We got Federer ranked at number 17. Exactly. Who would ever have thought that he would ever be ranked that low in a tournament? And he's a danger man lurking in Murray's half of the draw. And then, of course, I've got a lot of hope in Rafa Nadal. He's putting a lot of effort and passion into his comeback, and I really believe that he can do some damage out there.
Where do you think these guys do the damage now? In the quarterfinal stage, semi-final maybe, that kind of... is that the area they're lurking in? Finals?
Yes. Well, I think that I always have maintained that the best tennis is played at the quarterfinal level, because you've got maybe 1 or 2 surprises coming into the last 8. But that is where the real good tennis has been played. So I think that we're going to see a lot of action going into the round of 16 and into the quarterfinals. But it's going to be a really interesting tournament. But I do think Murray's got the edge this one, and it's his first one, so he'll put a lot of extra effort in.
Well, similar kind of scenario in the women's game. Serena thought, she slipped a bit. Angelique Kerber comes in, the Andy Murray type role. Where do you think this is all going? Is Serena going to get her act together and progress to get those extra Grand Slams she needs? Whereas Angelique Kerber, it's now her time.
Angelique has got a lot to do to do what she's done before. And I don't think she's as sharp as she was when she got to world number 1. We know with Serena Williams, she's a bit more relaxed. She's now got this marriage speculation out of her way. And the one thing that is very interesting in the women's draw is that it's so wide open. Right. And we've already had 7 seeds knocked out in the first round. So it's going to be a tough one. I'm giving it to Serena. Yeah. I think she's going to have less pressure. She's going to go in there. She's looking good. She's fit. She had a very good first round. Angelique struggled a bit, dropping a set in that first round. And, of course, I was surprised that Simona Halep was knocked out, the number 4 seed, in the opening round, which was a very big surprise because she likes the hard courts in Australia.
So more surprises in the women's draw for the year to come. Yeah. South African perspective, Raven Klaasen, breakthrough year last year, played out of his socks at the ATP Tour Finals. And now he's got Rajiv Ram, and they're in the Australian Open. This is the big time for them now. A
big one, and they've done well there before, and Raven has done well with other partners there before, seeded number 6 in a tough half of the draw. They've got the French number 1 team in the world, probably in the semi-finals. But I think the big challenge for them is going to be possibly Cabal and Farrar, the Colombians, in the quarterfinals. And I say that because they coached by Jeff Coetzee, the South African ex-doubles specialist, and he was coaching Raven Klaasen. So trade secrets. Raven is not with him, and I think that could be a really tough one. But nice that Raven's going to be coming back to South Africa for the Davis Cup team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just in. So that is huge that Raven will be coming to give back, in essence, compete for the South African Davis Cup team, but also, try and kickstart something in the game.
Yes, I think it's very important. I think Marcus Andriska, the South African Davis Cup captain, did a good negotiating deal with Raven Klaasen. We know that Kevin Anderson is talking to Marcus Andriska, and the door is open. That could happen soon too.
Okay.
But and I'm very excited about that, because I think Marcus Andriska is doing a very good job.
Right.
But I think with Raven Klaassen and Lloyd Harris and Ruan Rulofse, Tucker Forster and Nick Scholz, coming to play from the 3rd to the 5th at the Irene Country Club, it's going to be great for South Africa to see a Raven Klaassen that is doing so well in action here on home soil.
And of course, this all assists in what the South African Tennis Association is looking to do as well.
Fantastic, yeah. Richard Glover, the CSA CEO, who's only been in the job a couple of months, even brought in a sponsor in Kia Motors to sponsor the Davis Cup team, which hasn't had a sponsor for years. And in the next 2 days, he tells me he's going to announce another sponsor for the tie, which we haven't had in 5 years. So I'm very excited for tennis in South Africa.
We're going to hold thumbs that tennis does pick up. Bruce, thank you very much for joining us tonight and giving us your inkling. But I want to put you on the spot. Okay, so you're saying Murray and Serena Williams. So we're going to hold you to that, because you'll be back for Wimbledon, for the French Open.
But I really think that Andy Murray's going to win his first, and I think Serena Williams is going to beat the records.
Bruce Davison chatting to Simon Burke, and had it all in there. Had a prediction for the men's and women's draw at the Australian Open, as well as good news coming out for South Africa's Davis Cup team. That's it from me and the rest of the team that brought this to you live from Auckland Park, Johannesburg. My name is Kendall Makhamati. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the rest of the team, 9 a.m. sharp. Be sure to be here. Until then, listen.
Africa becomes the new business frontier, bursting with opportunity and hope. With its rich natural resources and continental diversity, 11 million managers require development of executive management and business skills to unlock Africa's potential. Mancosa graduates have been driving business, entrepreneurship and innovation in Africa and the world. Mancosa. Dream it. We'll take you there.
1.4 billion rand was raised to build the institution. Additional funding came from ordinary South Africans.
It's been heartwarming to have seen the project from 2009 when the first sorting happened to see it today being completed. Indeed, this is going to be our benchmark going forward. It's just been incredible.
Jammeh has said in the past that only Allah can remove him from office, and once claimed he would rule the tiny riverside West African nation for 1 billion years.
We are going to win this election.
Even if we avoid a downgrade, we're still hovering very dangerously close to junk, and that'll of course affect markets next year.
Our markets are actually already punishing us for a downgrade that may or may not come.
Woods made a blistering start but eventually slumped to a 1 over par 73 and is 9 shots behind the leader and his compatriot JB Holmes.
You know, I just made some really, if you look at it, some really silly mistakes. Mistakes I don't normally make, but I hadn't played in a while, and you know, unfortunately I made those mistakes. I can clean that up.
Campaign that is as a result of a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant to Good Business in Saatchi, South Africa. We've developed this campaign specifically to encourage the prevention of the bacterium. And this is aimed at people around anybody who coughs, for them to tell the person who coughs, hey Bowena, use your elbow. Motivation was really coming from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who are involved in a number of projects in South Africa. And one of the biggest challenges, as previously been said, is TB in South Africa. And the motivation is to affect behavior change, particularly with people who cough and who may be carrying the bacterium. So encouraging people to use the elbow clearly would reduce the spread of that airborne bacterium. Because the bacteria can live for 24 hours plus, you know, when you cough on your hands, you invariably touch hard surfaces or other people's hands, and thereby spreading the bacteria. When you use your elbow, though, it significantly reduces that risk, because most of the bacterium that you coughed out stays on your elbow or on your sleeve. It's such a light-hearted, easy way to get people to change their behavior, and therefore we believe it would be successful.
When you have a cough, or if you have chest pains, think about your friends, think about your friends. When you feel a fever, or if you sweat at night, look out for the signs, look out for the signs. I